Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of University City, Texas. It is June 20th, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order now at 6:30 p.m. and call for a quorum check, please.
Mayor Councilman Goolsby.
Here.
1 second, Mayor. I'm going to adjust my
Okay. Just double check and make sure that we don't have too much reverberation on the mics.
Councilmember Buck.
Here.
Councilmember Bulman. Here. Councilmember Fitzpatrick. Here. Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Quorum is present. We shall proceed. The invocation this evening will be given by Councilmember Buck, and I'll lead us in the pledges afterwards. So, everyone, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we stand before you tonight, your humble servants and servants to the residents of our great city, asking for your guidance and wisdom in all we do. Guide our discussions this evening to ensure understanding of the issues before us and help us make the best decisions on behalf of those whose trust has been placed in us. We thank you for the blessings you have bestowed upon us and upon the residents we represent. As we contemplate and direct the affairs of our city, we ask for your will to be done. Show us your purposes, enlighten us that we may know how you desire for us to accomplish our tasks. We set the goals, but you guide our steps as we seek to reach our ultimate destination. Grant us your vision and wisdom that we might do your bidding. Finally, we humbly ask for your watchful eye over all in our community, with special care to our first responders, children playing while on summer break, and our men and women bravely and selflessly serving our nation around the world. We ask all these things in your name, Heavenly Father. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, good. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening in 102 or 3 degree temperature, whatever it is. But I guess we're getting used to it, tolerating it fairly well. We have a very interesting agenda this evening, so I'm glad that you're all here. We have a couple of special things that I would like to do at the beginning of our presentation this evening. As I say, I'd like to recognize members of staff or individuals who have done things that I consider special. And one of the things I want to show you right now is a very short little video here, and then I'll introduce our director of golf for special recognition. So take a look and watch this. This last week was the very first youth golf camp at Olympia Hills. Okay, short and sweet. Just wanted to be able to see that there are 3 other camps scheduled for this summer as well. I had 2 of my grandkids in last week's camp. And I think you saw towards the end there, it said less keel. And I think that's really important. And that's why I want to recognize the family this evening. And I'd like to Sal Garcia to come up because what they have done to help our youth in golf is very fantastic. So Sal, would you please take the helmet?
Well, good evening. My name is Sal Garcia. I'm the Director of Golf at Olympia Hills. I've been fortunate enough to run all the junior camps since 2007, and it's amazing. I love it. The summers are the best time of the year for me. A couple of years ago, the Kill family and also Les Vaughan here came to me and wanted to start a memorial fund to help with the funds for the junior camp. So I've been able to purchase equipment for kids that need them, scholarships for kids that don't have the money to do so. And this year was pretty awesome. They are covering half the fee of every kid that joins this year, and it's just truly amazing. And I can't thank the family enough. And Gene's been fantastic. Julie and Mike have been awesome. And thank y'all very much for everything and all y'all support. Thank you very much.
If we use the money, that we'll keep it funded, and that's another contribution for this season.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
That's why I wanted you to hear about this, because this family I mean, they're basically scholarshiping half of the expense for every one of these children that are participating in this camp this summer. And it is just wonderful. My daughter-in-law came up, I had two grandsons in the camp last week, and she came up to me after she signed them up, she said, it only cost me half. Fantastic. Thank you for what you do, and your husband was a terrific member. Side statement, very interesting. Last Thursday night, there at the golf course, there was the happy hour. There was a scramble, which happens every Thursday night. Guys get together and gals get together, and they play a 9-hole scramble. There was also a wedding, reception. So you can imagine what the parking lot was like. So after the scramble was finished, you know what we did? Sal worked it out with the guys, the people at the Marriott Town Suites, and all the golfers went to the Marriott Town Suites and had their happy hour afterwards. So what a wonderful relationship we have with the organization. So Sal, great job, great job. I won't tell the other story about getting caught in the elevator. that was another story. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you guys realize that some people do above and beyond, and that's what happened with the Keel family. And we're so proud of you guys for what you do and how you support our community. And we have a lot of very, very happy kids and moms and dads. So I know you got to leave in a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure we recognize you for what you've done.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Okay. All right. Let's see. I think we move on now to the minutes of our previous council meeting. That's tab number A. Consider the minutes of the Tuesday, May 16, 2023 City Council regular meeting and the Tuesday, June 6, 2023 City Council regular meeting.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Any motion made by Councilmember Buck?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Goolsby. All right, Pro Tem Goolsby. Any discussion, anyone? All right, let's go over the order, please.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman? Aye. Councilmember Fitzpatrick? Aye. Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
That motion passes. We shall proceed. The next item this evening is citizens to be heard. It is an opportunity to provide citizens to address council on issues or concerns. It's informative only, as you can see. There's no special discussion related to that. No action will be taken, but we really appreciate people becoming directly involved with their community. And so this is their opportunity to address council. And this evening we've had 3 people that have signed up so far, and I'll call you up in order that you signed. First of all is Ms. Kim Eigelhart. Ms. Eigelhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, my name is Kim Eigelhart. I live at 736 Garden Meadow Drive. Tonight I'm asking you to seek clarification of the exact boundaries of the East Aviation Master Plan. Throughout the Master Plan, Appendix A and Appendix B, there are multiple maps. There are 2 different versions of the area's boundaries. I emailed you a copy of page 10 of the August 2020 presentation. The area identified in pink with an eastern boundary of Crockett and a western boundary of Houston is that area identified on pages 1 and 7 of the presentation as being the planned area. It is also so identified on multiple pages throughout Appendix B, a link to which I provided you, as it is not publicly available on our city website. Appendix B contains the study area background, the market analysis, and the land use existing conditions. That is, the rationale behind the plan. Please note on page 10 the highlighted comment that this master plan reflects an expanded area showing recommended uses transitioning out of the study area. While this seems to imply that the area is not a part of the actual study area, the map identifies the East Aviation PD boundary as the area marked in yellow on the attachment I sent you, with 1 block wider boundaries of Trudy to the east and Travis to the west, rather than the area marked in pink. This would include the cemetery located at the VFW on West Aviation. This expanded area map does not appear whatsoever in Appendix B. It is, however, the primary map utilized in the public presentation in August of 2020. Inasmuch as Appendix B is the research relied upon in explaining the need for the creation of the Aviation District Plan, and it apparently excludes the expanded area identified by the yellow border, I believe there is no documented research to justify the exclusion of said area. The property owners in the expanded area deserve to know if they are indeed in the Aviation District. I am asking you tonight to seek an answer to this question, and if the answer from staff is that Trudy and Travis are in fact the east and west boundaries respectively, I am then requesting that an agenda item be set to further discuss this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next individual assignment this evening is Ms. Linda Sefton. Begin your name and address for the record, please.
Mayor, members of council, I'm Linda Sefton, I live on Trudy Lane. I would like to address the request to change the zoning, the occupancy for the project on East Lindbergh. I read the minutes from the agenda from the planning and zoning board, and from what I understand is that the owner wants to use these units to be short-term rentals, 3 to 4 months, targeted at pilots that are in training at Randolph Air Force Base. I'm very concerned about that. If there's a trend all the way around Randolph, whether it's at Shirts and in Ciplo and in Converse, where more and more units and homes are being converted to short-term rentals, and it is a big problem. I have a friend who lives in Shirts behind the back gate, and in her neighborhood alone, there are 4 homes that are now short-term rentals, and it's been a non-stop problem because the pilots, they're not coming here with their families. They're only here for 3 to 4 months. A lot of them, they will double, triple up in the home, whatever the number of bedrooms are. And there's a big problem with parking and partying. I love the military. I'm an Air Force veteran. I love the airplanes. It's the sound of freedom. We're a military town. But to put short-term rentals in an area that's so close to a residential area, I'm very concerned with that. I'm also concerned that it's located either in or close to the Aviation project, because I'm a big fan of the Aviation project. I want it to work, but to have that project work, you have to be able to have pedestrian traffic, it has to be safe, you have to have a sense of community. When you have transient population who are just there for a few months, nobody bonded to the area, I am very concerned about how that's going to affect the whole atmosphere of the Aviation project. Now, what I want to ask you, I know that you're not this going to be discussing whether or not it can be short-term. I know the zoning allows that. But you are asking to allow them to have more units. So what I'm asking you is, if it's the intention of the owner that this is short-term leasing, 3 to 4 months, please vote no. Now, if the owner is willing to legally commit that it's going to be either long-term leasing, a month, 15 months, 18 months, or even it can be sold for individual ownership, that's great. I think that enhances what we're trying to do at the Aviation project. But to have short-term rentals down there, we have townhomes and condos we want to put down there. That's the hope, right? Who's going to buy a condo next to a short-term rental? We had these problems years ago when everybody was trying to do Airbnbs, and we all saw how that turned out. Well, now the trend is to do short-term rentals. I'm just asking you, please do not put that close to residential. It's in my precinct, it's close to where I live, and everybody I know who lives down there, they are not happy about having that type of rental that close to where we all live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Okay, the last individual signed up this evening is Ms. Denise Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Denise Thomas. I'm the HOA president for Proclama Ridge. And last week I contacted the City Council and also I spoke to Mr. Chairman, who all were very helpful in providing information regarding a lot that sits in front of our subdivision on Kitty Hawk. The owner is not cutting the grass and it's an eyesore. And they looked at it and saw that it wasn't, according to the current laws, causing any problems where they could, force the owners to cut the grass. It's an eyesore, and we have our community right back here, the new homes, and we really want the property taken care of. And, with taxpayers, and, we're just asking the city council to consider it, to look at what can be done. I understand that there's a law that may be preventing, a law that does not limit the height of the grass. So what I'm asking is for the mayor and city council to look at that law and maybe, put some kind of standard or limit on how tall that grass can grow. Because right now there's weeds, all kind of weeds in it, there's small trees growing up, and before you know it, it's gonna be a forest over there. And it's just not good for our homes. And so our community would like it cut. And if there's anything that you need from us, support or anything to maybe change the law or anything that we can do, we'll be here to support city council in changing the rules, changing the laws so they can be cut. And that's what I'm here for.
Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your input now. Okay, those are the only individuals that signed up this evening to address council. Would anybody like to, that didn't get a chance to fill out the, please come up and give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Lori Putt. I'm at 114 Foxglove here in Universal City. I wasn't going to say anything, but you started talking about going above and beyond when Sal was here. And I really was lucky one time. I was up at the golf course at his banquet when he was sending his kids off. And we were all almost in tears because he's not just doing golf, he's doing life lessons. He's teaching these kids how to behave and how to be polite. And what they came out of it was just amazing. Regina goes above and beyond. Our events have been blown out of the water. Like you were talking about at the golf course, we had 3 events going on. We had the luau. It was outside and still standing room only. Now we're getting ready to have a big one, Motown, Thursday night, and they're worried that there's going to be too many people. Gee, what a bad problem to have. But we're bringing people in, they're seeing the golf course, they're seeing what kind of events that are put on for this city, and they love our city. So it's a bad problem, but it's going to have to grow. We have had the most amazing new restaurants come in. We tried to hit them all, and our EDC has done a fantastic job bringing in these new people. Restaurants, everyone says, oh no, not another vape shop, not another this. We've got really good restaurants now. We're really becoming Restaurant Row. I just want everyone to know that now that we have a live stream on our city page, there's an awful lot of good that goes on in the city. We have a lot of residents that love living here and love what you're doing and love the things that are happening. And we really want to encourage this kind of movement too. We have to hear it all, but that's why I'm here, is because I want you to hear the other side too. The residents, the ones that I talk to, haven't had a lot of complaints. Everyone has their niche, and that's great. But I want everyone represented. I want everyone heard. And I just thank you, but our residents go and our employees go above and beyond, and I'm really proud of it. And you all do too, so thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
From the island to Universal City. Bueno, no, maybe nobody know me, but my name is Elpidio Bienvenido Brito La Hoy. I'm the junior in the family. I fly from Puerto Rico to Texas. In 2015, I opened my dream in Universal City. I bring the community the Caribbean food, the first restaurant Caribbean food in town. The name is El Rincón Criollo. I've been here for 2016. I'm working hard for my dream. I bring the best thing, the food, we make it with love. The first thing we do, I'm not doing this for money, I do it with love. I bring the new in my place. We got from the Air Force, recognition for the military. I'm nervous. This is my first time. Okay. I bring the campfire neighborhood too, and Universal City. So I'll be just working for my dream. I'm doing the hard work. I bring the best food. The only Caribbean food, authentic. We have the city. It's mine. It's the El Rincón Criollo Caribbean food. This is like a bless for the city, you know. You know how many cities he want to be a 5-star restaurant like that? But it's simple, because when I'm making my restaurant, I'm making so anybody can go. No problem if you be jewelry or sandal or no clothes, anybody can enjoy the food. I bring the Caribbean lobster life in Universal City. This is the only place he can eat the Caribbean lobster, not the tail lobster, Caribbean lobster. Spencer plate, there's the cheap to the Spencer. I've been strongly by 2019, we have my place on fire. 2020, COVID hit me. No help. I'm doing this by myself. 21, you know, with spare. I've been strongly, you know. I want to keep my restaurant in the city, you know. This is the power for the city. I already know it's like I'm here for serving the community. He bring the good food, he good vibe, he good love. I never be in trouble. This is the chief commander. The first time.
I gave you a promotion, I appreciate it.
The first time I've seen him for a long time. It's my first time see you. This today is like a bless for me, you know. So I wanna, like we say, like somebody speaks Spanish in here.
Maybe I can sum it up for you. So Emilio has been here a very, very long time, and he has gone through some very hard times. He's working very hard right now to get his business back open. And with this audience here and the ones that are watching online, we just ask that when he gets to that point, that you give him the support that he needs so he can continue to thrive within our community. We thank you all, PDO, for coming to speak with us.
Thank you. Best of luck to you, my friend.
God bless.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone want to be able to top that one? All right. Let's move on then to our first item this evening under business. It's no tab. It's tab number 1. CPS color-coded energy conservation presentation. Last month I was at the El Murray Council of Governments meeting. I had the privilege of being on their board, and there was a presentation from CPS Energy that I thought would be really, really interesting to everyone in our community. So I asked, are you willing to take this on the road? And they said, yep. And here they are. So Milady Nazir is going to make the presentation
And I
tonight.
think Kristen's going to pop up the presentation.
Kristen's going to get ready to pop up her little presentation. I think you're going to find this very informational. It's very much for all of us. So that's why I asked CPS to come tonight.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Mayor, thank you. And Council, thank you for having us here. It's really important that we have the support of you and also the community because it's about beating the heat. And like you mentioned, this is a color-coded conservation program. We actually launched it last summer, but this year we are getting a lot of support from the local media, and we hope that everybody here will adopt the energy measures that we're promoting, but also spread the word. So let me just start by, again, the summer campaign, Beat the Heat. It's in English and in Spanish because it's really important to communicate to the community in language as well. And you know, this program is really simple. It's a 4-level color-coded system. So most days they're green days. So we're asking the community to practice everyday conservation steps at home. Set the AC at 78 degrees. You know, make sure you use the fan if it's safe for you to use a fan. Do what you can to keep basically the AC inside your home. Bring down the shades, things like that. Yellow days is where now we see a peak demand. So we see that the temperatures are going up, right? And so we're all using that AC. But what we're asking the community is, when we're on yellow days, like today, to conserve more, to pitch in. If you don't have to do laundry between 3 and 8, don't do the laundry. It can wait. Try to not use large appliances because our collective efforts really do matter. We are saving energy, we're conserving energy, and it helps not only savings for the consumers, but also to the grid, to our local grid as well. And we're asking the community to make sure that they get involved. They can follow us on social media to learn more about it. So you have actually a handout of the campaign and the tips. It's in English and in Spanish. We encourage you to please get involved and spread the word. So for Yellow Day, today is from 3 to 8. We're just reminding the community to conserve, conserve, conserve. So the summer campaign, we really created bigger outreach this time around. We are doing digital billboards. We're directly communicating with consumers, or with our residents, with the community. If they signed up for an energy alert, they'll get a message. They'll say, hey, today's a Yellow Conservation Day. Also online, they can see ads. Of course, the bus system. They're really important for us to communicate. TV, we do appearances. We talk to the press all the time. I'm not sure if you've seen, but since Friday, the news have just been doing a wonderful job in reporting that we're in a yellow level conservation, and it's really, really encouraging for us that the message for the Heat campaign is getting out. This time, we're also doing mall kiosks, so when people go shopping, they can see that it's important to save energy. And in store, so when you go shopping and you turn the back of your receipt, you'll see messaging on Beat the Heat. So the other 2 portions of the Beat the Heat, you have the orange and the red alert, and those are not, those are called by ERCOT. We focus on the green and the yellow. And for the next couple of days, we are in yellow, I will say that. The next slide, thank you. It's about our recognition. People are happy. Members of the industry are happy. The Public Relations Society of America, the local chapter here, awarded us for our marketing campaign. And also the American Public Power Association, which is our peers at the national level. They thought that this is a tremendous campaign that we're doing, and they love what we've done with our website because it's really easy to navigate and understand what you can do to save, what steps you can take, and what programs to take advantage of as well. Next slide, thank you. And the other ask that we have beyond conservation is we want to hear from the community. And there's so many different ways that we can get the input, the feedback from our community. We have regular board meetings, monthly board meetings. They are streamed online. The community can register to provide public input, similar like this forum. We also have quarterly meetings open to the public. The next one is coming up on the 26th of June, as well as other committees that we have that provide feedback to CPS Energy, the RAC and the Citizen Advisory Committee. Those are also available online. People can stream, they can keep up to date with what we're doing, the initiatives that we have. And also there's lots of assistance that we're promoting. Utility assistance, how to take advantage of rebates. It's a lot of the community, there's a lot of help there, but they just have to get informed. So that's one of the things that we're definitely stressing, to take advantage of rebates as well. And finally, we're knocking on doors, we're at events, we're at fairs, and making sure that we're communicating this messaging. One of the things that we did in this campaign is we had focus groups. And, we wanted to keep the campaign simple, like, hey, conserve, But when we did the focus groups, the community wanted magnets on their refrigerators. And really specific, really detailed. So we listened, and we definitely have refrigerator magnets. We have some outside as well. And really urge those here to please take them, spread the word. And finally, I think we have another slide. Yes, again, we want to hear from the community. We want the community to know what we're doing as well. We have the newsroom. People can sign up for our newsletters. Rudy Garza, he has his own newsletter where you can hear directly about what's going on in the industry, and also with Beat the Heat and the importance of conservation. We're asking also the community to sign up for the energy alerts. That way you know about conservation, if there's any issues, and it's always good to get enrolled in those alerts. And finally, that's it. I think that's it, right? That's the last slide. Yeah, follow us on social media. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for supporting me. Anything else, Mayor?
No, I just wanted to make sure that y'all had the opportunity to do it. There are some handouts.
We have the handouts and the magnets out in the lobby.
Right. I'll open it up to the council wants to make a couple of comments as well. Yes, Mr. Buck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here, Ms. Najarian. I appreciate the presentation. I believe that CPS Energy also has a program whereby residents can elect to allow CPS to control their thermostats during high periods of demand. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yes, what I will say is called the Wi-Fi Thermostat Rewards Program. And it's a program where, for those who have central air conditioning, they can get a rebate. I believe it's up to $85. And then they'll get a bill credit at the end of the year. And basically, it's part of our demand response program. And basically, like on a yellow day, we have participants, we have, residents, we have business members that agree to conserve more during peak energy hours. And that's basically from 2 to 7 or 3 to 8, as we're seeing right now. And that is a voluntary program. One of the things that we say is every kilowatt saved is a kilowatt we don't have to pay for. So yes, that is open to the public. There's a Wi-Fi thermostat rewards. You can get information at cpsenergy.com/Wi-Fi thermostat rewards.
Perfect. I've talked to some people about this, and they say there's no way I'm letting CPS Energy into my Wi-Fi network or something like that. What's the CPS Energy response to any privacy concerns that somebody might have?
Well, I'm not sure that I would be able to answer that right now. What I will say is that people can opt out at any time. They can opt out at any time. If they don't want to do 78 degrees, they can opt out. And then, yeah, it's not a problem.
Very well.
But we will make sure we get that answer to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Thank you. We really appreciate
we
do have Mr. Adjournment.
I was just going to make a statement. I'm
Sure.
part of that program, and sometimes it's a little tough, but hey, but I haven't had any Wi-Fi concerns or weird emails or anything else about it, so I really haven't noticed anything, except sometimes it's a little harder when you get home, but it's actually a lot cooler than when I worked at every day, so it's worked out well for me.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation. I hope this is informative to you and the audience as well. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it very much. Yeah. All right, next item is another note, tab number 2, Aviation District Master Plan Review Presentation. Sodom.
Thank you, Mayor. We've done a lot talking about, the components of the Aviation District Master Plan. And what I've asked Michael, and also I believe Christian has some input, or may have some input, is to talk about the work that was done by the consultants. Thank you. The work that was done by the consultants and some of the data that they collected while they were working on this specific plan. So I'll hand it over to Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So the Aviation District Master Plan, as everyone is familiar with, we're just going to go over some highlights, where we've been, where we're at, where we're going. So, but I think it's important first to step back and look at the 2018 Comprehensive Plan, which gave direction to City Council, which then gave direction to staff based on input from 346 residents, 6 focus panels, and the direction, some of the highlights that were provided with regard to the Aviation District Master Plan is that staff should identify, purchase, develop land for parking and a town square in the Aviation District. Second item is that we should put an architect on retainer to help with the storefront improvement program, and that's been a benefit. One of the examples, one of the benefits is the Gather Brewery. So the EDC in the city did help contribute to the redevelopment of that very successful business in the Aviation District. The last thing is that the comprehensive plan directed council to direct staff to develop a master plan for the redevelopment, revitalization of the Aviation District. And so that's exactly what staff has done. So staff has been following the edict of City Council. So that brings us to the plan itself. And there's 2 things, the vision and the goals. So let's just go over the vision first. So redevelopment versus revitalization. So do we do tear downs and start over versus repurposing and upgrading? So a combination of both is probably likely what's going to happen. And Gather Brewery is an example of that. That's a redevelopment or remodeling of an existing structure and business. Interconnectivity, we want to be able to provide for a relationship between businesses, the residences, and parks. The daytime vibrancy, which bleeds into life at night. Two are kind of intermingled, but we want to provide a mix of businesses that provide some happenings in that downtown area. And so by life at night, we want to bring in some activity after 5 o'clock and on the weekends and make it a destination. The goals. So the goals are that we'd like to provide a vibrant public realm, town center, public square, a mix of uses, again, life at night, walkability, entertainment areas, small gathering spaces, parks, and parklets. And the Aviation Master Plan also called for the buildings to be placed closer to the street to create as much of a street wall as possible, because that is more new urbanist and it creates a better environment for what we're trying to achieve. So the master plan, again, a direction that was provided from the comprehensive plan. We did interview approximately 25 area stakeholders, got their feedback, so that was part of the analysis that was done by our consultant. They did generate a market analysis and a land use analysis, and I'll go into the market analysis in just a bit. A traffic analysis was also conducted as part of this study, and that included data from TxDOT, as well as some fresh traffic counts. Again, those are 3 years old, but at that time they were new. It also provided guidance or looked at the future land use plan, as well as the zoning ordinance. And so the Aviation District Master Plan itself is a slight departure, or at least a remodeling of the existing zoning in that area to, again, meet the goals and the vision of the master plan. So from the study, there were 4 main takeaways that we received. And the first one is a need for a public gathering place and amenities for seniors. There's a lack of diverse restaurants, a lack of definitive signage and branding or streetscaping. So we want to be able to provide, as we redevelop, revitalize this area, some landmarks that let someone who's driving into the aviation district know that, hey, you're in the aviation district, and we can achieve that through different types of branding and signage and streetscaping. And then also age-in-place opportunities is a major concern. This is not just a UC issue, as I've mentioned before in previous presentations. This is a nationwide issue. As we have an older generation that don't have kids in the house anymore, they don't need the house the size of a home that they currently have, and they'd like to downsize. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of opportunities for them to stay within their community, within Universal City. And so what the master plan calls for is a diversity in housing types. And that would include increased density, different types. So just not large single-family homes, but different size single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, maybe apartments, condos. So the market analysis that went into this study, they retrieved data from various sources, including EMSI, which is a private source for labor market data, CoStar, which is for commercial real estate data, Esri Business Analyst, U.S. Census Bureau, at that time it was the 2010 census data that was provided, Bear County Appraisal District, the Comptroller's Office for sales data, Department of Housing and Urban Development for building permit history, and then Zillow for home listings. So what was also identified is that Universal City is at the center of a growing donut. So our adjacent communities of Selma, Live Oak, Converse, Cibolo, and Schertz, it's projected that they will see significant growth, population growth in the coming years. Universal City, in order to compete, needs, because we're landlocked, we need to provide for infill redevelopment at higher densities. So just to touch on some of these items that are on the screen, in the study area itself, there are 130 parcels that were identified. 65% of those structures were built before 1968. And 50% were built before 1978. And there's only been 2 structures built since 2006. So we have quite an old stock, both commercial and residential. There are 98 landowners. 73% of those are individuals, so that makes it a little more difficult when you're dealing with individuals to consolidate lots to achieve the vision. However, because of the way that that area was designed initially, it has a strong street grid foundation, which allows for us to develop walk-friendly block lanes. The average size home in Universal City at the time of the study was about 2,100 square feet, but homes in the study area were about 500 to 700 square feet smaller, so it's about 20%. It also identified that the lot coverage ratios in the study area were lower than the city average by about 15 to 20%. And what that means is that the footprints of the homes could be a little larger, 15 to 20%, to maximize the use of the lot. So this just identifies the 22 parcels, or 17% of the parcels in the aviation district that are vacant. And so that has its pros and cons. Obviously, when you see a lot of vacancies, or a lot of vacant parcels without any structures on them, that could suggest some blight. But it also provides an opportunity for redevelopment, meaning that if a developer is able to consolidate lots and they want to build something, they don't have to worry about taking down existing structures. So what are tools to guide us moving forward? Well, infrastructure improvements are important. Obviously, we have to have that baseline in order to provide for the increased density, the new buildings, the modern structures. The capacity is going to be an important issue. And so one of the things that we've done, Public Works has redone completely Aviation District, including the infrastructure there at the mains. So other parts of the downtown area are also going to have to be improved. A lot of those city sewer and water mains are old, so they'll have to be upgraded as the redevelopment occurs. The plan called for a multimodal plan. So we want to provide synergy between walking, biking, and driving. We want to examine the streets, the sidewalks, pedestrian paths, bicycle lanes, one-way streets, potentially, and community parking lots. Commercial and residential development, we would like to provide investors and developers a clear set of guidelines So they have a known set of data and process data coming in. That's a huge question for developers, is what is the process? How much am I going to have to spend to get through the process, and how long will it take? What is the likelihood that will be successful? So this plan helps guide them in what the uses are that City Council suggested they would like to see in that area. Some of the ways, in addition to that, we can help them out is provide a planned unit development district. We haven't done that, but we can also provide planned unit developments for specific developments within the area itself. We can also create a sign plan that's unified, that's equitable for all the different businesses coming in. So they're all treated the same, they know what they can expect, they know what they can do, and they know the process to get it done quickly. And then lastly, the plan called for, as I mentioned, to create a list and prioritize properties to purchase. Let's see, some of the other ways we can attract investment and incentivize investment is potentially explore the possibility of a TERS, which is a tax increment reinvestment zone, or tax rebates. Mechanisms, it's important. How do we pay for all of this? Well, there's a few different ways that you can explore. Impact fees is one way that's been done in the past in different communities. We can sell land that the EDC and cities acquired at a reduced value, and we can have the EDC continue to make investments in the redevelopment of this area. And one of the last things, which I'm sure everybody will be happy if we can actually accomplish this, is to establish a quiet zone along Aviation Boulevard. That train does get pretty loud. So here's the plan itself, 2 different versions. So what have we done so far? I'm not going to go through all of these, but just some of the highlights. As you can see, as I mentioned, we've redone Aviation Boulevard. That's important. We've acquired or purchased certain properties. We provided City Council and the public with a concept plan for a town square for that idea. We've sent out to RFP 302 Papooka Road, which is the old Shell gas station, for redevelopment. We're expecting those proposals within the next week or 2. And there's some various different things there that staff and the city has accomplished to, again, bring this plan to fruition. So some of the ideas that we have moving forward, a food truck park. So you're probably aware that we've been working with someone in the downtown area for about 2.5 years, it seems, maybe 3, to establish a food truck park. And so they just opened this past weekend, past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for their soft opening. And talking to the owner this morning, he said it was very successful. He was very happy with the number of trucks that came through and with the number of patrons that came through as well. And so he's very excited about moving forward. He's going to expand the hours and identify specifically which types of food trucks are going to be more permanently there.
Nice.
One of the other ideas that we have is kiosks, that type of venue, which would be temporary or interim. Maybe a community garden, a farmer's market, or a car meet. Again, just some ideas for the interim to bring activity into that area. And that is all I have for that.
You don't have nothing about Rosewood Drive? Don't have nothing to change over there? I see you got different building, remodeling. Talk to me about the 218 Rosewood Drive.
That's not part of the plan.
You're not part of the plan?
Yeah, it's not in that district.
But with every good plan, LPDO,
Yeah.
sometimes the boundaries of it go beyond.
I like it. I like the for the food truck. You know how many people have been for a long time.
Yes.
We have a food truck in town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, any questions?
We do have some opportunities for council to make comments. Yes.
Is there any way to go back to that first slide? I had a question. I think it was the very first slide. Nope, I'm kidding, it's the second one. Okay. That first thing, it says identify, purchase, develop land for parking and town square. So that's what the people wanted?
That's what the people and city council wanted.
Okay, but that says develop land for parking and a town square, not purchasing land for other things, correct? Like, am I reading that correctly? Like, it says identify, purchase land for parking and a town square.
No, so in somewhere else in that plan, as I mentioned in the cards that is purchased or identified land that has been purchased.
But for anything, because this is parking in town square.
Yeah, that's just the bullet I put up there to identify that. That was the direction City Council gave staff that we followed to do what we can do.
I'm just confused, because that says buying land for parking in town square, but yet the last presentation we saw had an apartment complex, parking garage, and a town square. So it didn't say apartments. In this sentence, it doesn't say apartments, it just says parking in town square. Okay, I was just curious, like that's what people wanted, but we're going above and beyond that scope, I guess? Okay.
Just to maybe help answer Ms. Einhorn's question about the boundaries. So you had a map up there briefly, but do you know if it goes from Crockett to Trudy?
Yeah, so it's pretty clear in the plan what the boundaries are. It's Travis and Trudy.
But Travis on this other side, yeah, just that street and then on the other side.
And the plan also calls for, if it's successful, it could be expanded, which would make sense.
Well, what would be the plan for those houses, Crockett to Trudy? In an ideal world, I guess they would be torn down and rebuilt into something bigger? You're saying that you wanted to have a bigger footprint in those lots?
If the market dictates that, sure.
All the options are available to the current property owners and whatever the future property owners are, whether they want to remodel the existing house and just make it more modern. Maybe they want to keep the house and expand to it. Maybe somebody has the vision of tearing it down and starting over. And that's kind of one of those things that the market will dictate for each individual owner. And those lots are in varying sizes. So whoever the owner is or the intended owner or future owner will really be the ones that are making the decision on what happens to the property they own.
Are there any current limitations on that now? If they wanted to renovate their house, but do they have to make it a certain size or
No.
do they have to make it look a certain way?
They have to currently follow the existing code, so meet the bulk regulations of the current zoning code. Again, this is a guideline. This is the vision for that area. So when we have someone who wants to come in, for example, tonight's applicant, they could have torn it down and built a single family home, or they could have remodeled that home. It would have been expensive and probably not cost beneficial for them to do that. But this plan calls for increased density. It calls for these types of residential units. It also calls for us to follow the current code, which is why they're coming before you for a specific use permit in order to do that.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Goolsby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do a lot of master plans with our clients, right? We try to develop the site. The master plans we put together are exactly what you said. They're kind of guidelines. It's not a set in stone set of regulations, but this is a plan to get where we want to go. We do work with a lot of clients that don't develop immediately from a master plan. They just say, hey, this is where I'm going to drop this. That was how.
That was good.
And we're going to drop this building here, and then the next building over there, and the next building over there. Then we'll come in and be like, I really wish we had done X, Y, or Z. That's what the master plan is trying to help guide. But if somebody comes in and says, I really want to do something different here, you're not going to stop them, are you? You're going to allow them as long as it falls something within the realm of what we want.
Yeah, so we had this conversation with prospective or contract purchaser for some land in the Aviation district a couple of weeks ago. And we tell them, look, for what they were proposing to do would be a continuation of the existing types of uses there, which does not meet the vision. So legally, they could continue that type of use in that district, and we're not going to stop them, but we're going to explain to them the vision and try and pitch that to them to give them the broader scope of what we're looking to accomplish. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we understand that the market does drive it, that this is not a codified plan. It's not an overlay district, it's what you said. It's a set of guidelines that will help us guide the future growth of that area.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Because when I'm talking to you about the master plan, one of my favorites that I heard, and I kind of agree with, was if it doesn't have Bill Miller's, doesn't have Taco Bell, why are we even looking at it? So again, my argument is it's a guideline. This is a direction we want to head, But that's part of that argument. And then another aspect of it is shutting down a roadway that's highly trafficked. I like the idea of being able to shut that down at night whenever we're seeing that walkability, but to shut it down 24 hours a day, I'm not a fan of. But let's see, I'm going through some of the other things that were brought up. I feel like that's pretty much covered it. But you talked about signage, and one is kind of the directing people from one side of town to the other, trying to maintain some type of standard that we're going to put together, but then also putting together a standard in that district. Is that something you're looking for council to say, hey, Michael, that's a great idea, go ahead and make it happen? Or are you going to go ahead and try to put together some type of signage standards for the aviation district?
So, yeah, I mean, ideally we'd like to put together a comprehensive sign plan or sign code that everyone in that district will have to follow. But that would take approval by city council, first direction, and approved by city council. So there are three components to the sign issue for that aviation district. One is wayfinding signs, right? The second one is a landmark sign. So in the plan itself, it calls for, it shows an arch at the south and the north side. So that's, again, that lets people know that they're in the aviation district. And then individual signage for individual businesses. So those are the three components to the sign package. What we've been doing is, again, we're following the current sign code. That's pretty old. And so we may be coming back to you with some suggestions on how to maximize the advertisement and marketing for some of the existing businesses, so we can, help them grow, help them be successful. But right now we're following the existing sign code.
And that may come out in the next comprehensive plan that we do, when we look at market analysis and signage and streets and things of that nature, zoning, future land use plan, and then the strategic initiatives. That may come up, we don't know, because we haven't done, the residents haven't spoken yet.
And then one other thing that I heard was like Ms. Putt said, there's people that like certain things and people that don't like other things. I hear several people that are not excited about the arch aspect, and I'm just wondering, how do we as a city decide on that?
The city council will decide on that.
City council will decide on that. Because I'm always a fan of, hey, let's put together some type of design competition and see what these people can come up with. So just throwing that out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, there's also streetscaping, just FYI. So that's streetscaping. It is a part that's related to that arch, but it's more about the lighting, trying to unify and create a comprehensive package that will, again, identify specifically your aviation district. That includes the light poles, the design of the light poles, the height, the style. What staff would do is that we would put together, get ideas, put them together for you to narrow it down, hopefully, and then present that to you, and then you would give us further direction. Either scrap it, continue with these three, or you like it, go forward.
Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Casada, if you would indulge me, please. Could you talk to us about how the land will be acquired, and will there ever be a use of eminent domain to acquire any of the properties in the aviation district?
Defer to Kim.
So, as you know, we've been using the Economic Development Corporation has been doing a lot of work to bring this program to fruition by purchasing select parcels that they've identified as key in order to get the town plaza and all of those amenities in with it. So they have been doing that. Our intention at this point is not to really be looking in the residential area, because one, that's not where the economic development focus is. Their focus is on the commercial. The residential will most likely come through private development, like we've seen. We had another duplex that was pitched a while back that quite hasn't gotten off the ground, but something of that nature, that's kind of all done by private development. We don't really have much involved in that, except from the commercial aspect. In terms of eminent domain, no, we will not do eminent domain.
Thank you.
There's no need for it.
And then the final question is a legal one. Have we done a copyright analysis with St. Louis to make sure that we're not violating anything?
No, sir, we have not. Again, it's just a conceptual design if and when council is ready to come up with some kind of marker. Obviously, the firm will provide you some examples and not copy anyone else.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are we good? Everyone? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you can tell me this like in front of everyone, but you said the gas station, you guys put out an RFP. Can you say what you're hoping to, like what you think is gonna come in that or no? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, sorry. I was just curious, like if you put out an RFP to say like apartments, or you're thinking like a restaurant, or you can't say.
Well, that's the purpose of doing an RFP, is to let other people come back and tell us what their ideas were.
Okay.
So the RFP was put out by the Economic Development Corporation, just so you understand that. And so they did put it out, right? They bought the building.
Yep.
And so, you know, they don't intend to hold it.
Yeah.
That's not their goal. So they put the RFP out so that people could make a pitch to them for what they see as the vision on that particular property. And then the EDC can hear those pitches and then determine if that is the direction that they would like it to go. And if it is, that's probably who they'll negotiate with.
But what are they leaning towards? Can you tell me that?
They're not leaning toward anything.
Okay, so just anything, whatever anyone comes up with, okay.
But we have presented them, they understand that there's a aviation district master plan.
Yeah, all of
Okay.
everybody in the RFP
Okay.
has been through the Aviation District Master Plan. They understand. That's
Okay.
their guiding principles.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, everyone. Hope that was meaningful to you all in the audience as well. It is potential for the future of our area. We're having a lot of redevelopment in an area that could be very lucrative to us. All right, next item is note tab 3. We're going to have a public hearing in a few minutes. We'll have a presentation by staff first, then I'll open up the public hearing. But it's related to PC 574 SU 1014 BC 672, request for a specific use permit and related variance for a .1570 acre tract located at 201 East Lindbergh Boulevard, and number 1, to allow an apartment residential unit in ROT Old Town Residential District, and 2, exceed the maximum density requirements of 16 units per acre and allow 19 units per acre per zoning ordinance 581. What I'll have to do is a presentation from staff first, then I'll open up the public hearing to allow you to comment, anyone that's interested to comment about it, and I'll close the public hearing, then we'll go to the next item, which gives members of council the opportunity to get involved as well. So, Mr. Hearn?
Thank you, Mayor. Michael's going to go over the presentation and then also provide feedback from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Okay, so as mentioned, we're discussing 201 East Lindbergh Boulevard, which is in the Aviation District Master Plan. And so it's a corner lot, which allows for the current proposal to move forward. So it's on Lindbergh and Bowie Drive. And so there's an existing dilapidated single-family home. The staff has been working with a couple of property owners over the last few years on that property. As I mentioned, the original intent, I think, was to go in and remodel that property or that home, but it's just so at a point of disrepair that it didn't make financial sense to move forward with that plan. So they got creative, understanding that we do have the master plan in place that calls for higher density. And so what they're proposing tonight is a triplex, which, and I'll just go over some of the specifics. Again, this is zoned ROT district, residential Old Town, and a use of this density, this type, does require a specific use permit, which goes to Plan Commission, which makes a recommendation to City Council. And so, let's see here, just some of the specifics about the project. So I'm going to go to the actual plans themselves because they're very illustrative. Staff has been working with this developer. This is the same architect that brought forward the duplex that was approved about a year and a half ago, I believe it was, for another property in this area. And so, just scroll down a little. There we go. Some visuals. And so, as you can see, if you looked at the architectural elevations provided in the packet. They are providing a lot of articulation. It's not just a rectangular box with a flat plane going across each of the 4 sides. It does have articulation. It's 2 and 3 stories, depending on the unit. There are 3 units. The first unit, which fronts Lindbergh, is about 2,600 square feet. Total space, 1,850 square feet of living space. And again, that meets the direction of the master plan is to increase the size of the units as much as possible. We understand the market dictates. Unit 2, which is in the middle, fronting Bowie, living space is about 1,420 square feet. And then Unit 3, which is on the end, living space is again 1,420. The exterior materials are a combination of brick and siding. Each of these units will be sprinklered, so a fire alarm and suppression is required, and they're providing that. There's space in each of the units has a 2-car garage, which exceeds the minimum square footage for a garage, and it provides for enough room for the garbage cans, the recycling, and the trash can to be inside the garage with enough room for parking. We also wanted to make sure that if someone had an F-150, that they park on the driveway, they wouldn't be overhanging the sidewalk. So they've accommodated that request. And that's very important, obviously, for the downtown. We're looking to create a pedestrian-friendly environment so people can easily navigate down the sidewalks in town. The back patio has 2 units. There's a back patio on 2 of the units and a smaller outdoor area, very small, on the property facing Lindbergh. And let's see here. I think that pretty much covers it. They did go before Plan Commission, and they did receive a unanimous recommendation of approval. We sent out, as required by the state, 26 notices. We also noticed in the newspaper there was, as I mentioned in the staff memo, a resident, 2 residents across the street that live in the home across the street that did have concern about parking. So again, we explained that the lot itself, each unit has enough space inside the garage for 2 vehicles, enough space on the driveway for 2 vehicles. So 4 spaces per unit. And then there is street parking that's allowed throughout all of town in this area as well. But in addition to that, another item that should be coming up soon is, and if you've driven down there, you've seen all that concrete ripped up. The EDC did purchase an area which is almost kitty corner to this property to develop a public parking area. And so that'll provide some additional parking for guests. And the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Do you have someone else that would like to make a couple of comments about the property?
Sure, so we have the property owner and the architect are here as well.
Please,
if you'd like to
go ahead. Listen to them before we open up the public.
So my name is Amy Nguyen. I live at 13507 Mount Olympus. I've been here on my 4th or 5th year, I forget, but we love Universal City. Yes, we lived in Stone Oak for like 3 years. Kind of hated it. So much traffic up there. We'll be back here because we're actually stayed at a short-term rental in town before we bought our house in Stone Oak. But we love this area. We'll be back. The only thing that I didn't like about Universal City is there's nothing to do. And sometimes you go and don't drive on the older people, but a lot of older people live here. And what I see from other cities is it's not like 30, 40-year-olds hanging out downtown or anything else. So when Mike showed me the plan, because we're looking at different projects to invest in Universal City, I like the plan, and we bought Bloomberg property. So we're going to do a duplex, but to build a duplex, we said, why not just build a triplex? If we can actually do it, our architect said it's possible. And it falls in line with higher density, and actually I built it so it's like 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths, so it's more for small families. So it's like a starter home for small families. But I am using it for the pods in the short term, but in the future, I'm going to sell it to people, most likely to be younger families going to Universal City. That's my vision of the Aviation district, is for those young families to gather, a lot of walking districts, places to do kids events, restaurants. And once aviation project gets full blown, I think it'd be great for small families. And of course, that district has great school districts, so I think it'd be a plus for young families. Again, I built this place so that fits in the aviation project. I am using it for pilots right now. And to alleviate, ma'am, I have 3 houses I rent to pilots, no parties, and majority of my deposit that come are for their families. So the pilots are in their 20s, so they have most likely wife and preschool kids, so they come out here. And that's probably about 60% of our clients have families there. That's what we try to focus this thing on, is for military pilots and young families. Sorry.
All right, good, thank you very much. All right, so let me go ahead and open up the public hearing now. It is 7:41, and again, it's related to the specific use permit for that 1.157 acre tract at 201 East Lindbergh. So would anyone like to address council related to this particular issue? Public hearing is open now. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to revisit the short-term leasing issue. There's no guarantee they're going to bring families. And everywhere else in the area where the pilots are coming to trainees, they're doubling up and tripling up. In the neighborhood right behind Randolph and Schertz, there's a very nice neighborhood. Those houses are $450,000 to $500,000, and yet in that neighborhood there are 4 homes that are being used exclusively as short-term rentals, and it's ruined their neighborhood. Their HOA have had to harass them and finally one is put up for sale. There's no HOA there. What are the residents going to do when you have the issues with party? I used to work officer assignments when I was on Randolph in the military. I did the TDYs. I know all about the trainees who come here. We're a military family. I'm Air Force. My dad was retired from the Air Force. Love the Air Force, but the reality is most of the trainee pilots come here without their family for the short term. A lot of times they then go on to another base to continue their short-term training and they go from base to base. And I'm just saying, what are the residents supposed to do? There's no HOA there. If you go through the complaint process with the city, if there's an issue with those places, by the time that goes through the process, they've already moved on. There's simply no recourse once you open the door for short-term. And it's going to be the same catastrophe as we had with the Airbnbs in other cities. And I'm just saying, once we go down this road, it's going to affect who moves in and builds things in that area because of that short-term residency. So please do what you want to do from the beginning, because I think it would be fantastic homes to be individually owned or leased on the long term, but please don't bring short-term leasing into that area.
Anybody else?
I'd say,
Yes, sir.
2 years rented to pilots, I've never had a party, and our lease says no parties. 90% of the time, it's one party.
Right, you made that very clear. That's it. Yes, sir.
Do you need me to come up to the podium?
Yes, please. Miss.
My name is Ken, that's 13410 Adonis. I don't know if this question is appropriate or not based on what we're talking about, but when you mention street parking, does that still allow, if there's parking on both sides, for adequate flow of two-way traffic on that street?
Yeah, unless the street code prohibits that currently, then yes.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else? No, we're not on yet.
Oh.
We're not on yet. So we gotta close the.
It's not my turn.
Then you're gonna be out. Sorry. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing then at 7:45 and move on then to tab number B. Discuss and consider that ordinance, which is 655J 2023. This is an ordinance that would approve a specific use permit in Tawana and Nguyen for an apartment residential unit and density variance for a triplex on our Old Town Residential District for property located at 201 East Lindbergh, and providing for non-severability and establishing an effective date. This would be the first reading. So now I open it up to council to make their comments to Mr. Cassetta or the developer, and we'll go from there. So, Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for the property owner. Actually, Mr. Wayne, you said you live at 13507 Meadowlands, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're former military, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
How long?
22 years.
What service?
Air Force?
You're familiar with the Air Force procedures and policies regarding transient pilots, yeah?
Yes.
Could I ask perhaps a favor? You say that you will provide to the neighboring residents around there a forum for which they can contact the base so that if there is any incidents of this behavior, loud parties, because obviously you're not going to have cameras into place, you're not going to be able to monitor what goes on there. Would you maybe provide the residents around the area, say, hi, we're going to have some temporary pilots here. If there's any trouble, here's a person that you can contact on the base, and they will bring the hammer down? Because my experience with the military, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't, first I wouldn't have them do it. They would go to me, and I'll put the hammer down with their commander.
Good.
So, that's my job. That's why I like doing the military, because it's easy to put down the hammer.
Yes, sir. Just a general comment. I believe that Ms. Sefton's comments are not invalid, that short-term rentals can be a problem. We've all read the horror stories online about all of these things, but given the fact that these are young pilots that are coming in who are at the beginning of their careers, the last thing that they want to do is get dorked up by their command for something that they did that was stupid, off base, off duty. So I, for one, have confidence in the professionalism of our young pilots coming through here on training, and with you as a backup, as a point of contact for the local residents, I'm confident approving this. Thank you, Mr. Name, Mr. Wynn. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are you gonna have an HOA for this property, or no?
Only if I sell it, because it's 3 properties, but I would have to develop one if I sell it.
Okay, I have one more question. How come you can't just do long-term leases to house owners? Like, how come you wanna do pilots first as opposed to just doing, because obviously they're beautiful, it'd be a really cute starter home for a lot of people, so why not just start with that?
Well, it costs a lot of money to build it, but I've done long-term rentals for a while, and the house is not kept up. So what I like about short-term rentals is I clean it regularly, I maintain the yards, I make sure that the house is in great order, outside and inside. So personally, I would think the residents outside would not worry about the grass, like you ma'am, or just the way that the yard looks or the house looks, or how trash or what they store outside, not worry about any of that, because they're here temporarily. I can maintain it and keep it in great order. So if you want a pristine looking house, I think short-term rental is probably the easiest. Long-term is iffy. So I've done both, and I kind of like short-term better because the house is, I mean, it keeps it looking nice all the time.
I understand Ms. Sefton's concerns, and I do share them a little bit, but you are part of our community, and you're here, you're in Universal City, it's not California, so we don't have somebody that we're dealing with that we can't get a hold of. I'm your neighbor. Can I come knock on your door if we got a problem down there and have you fix it for us?
Yeah, that's what I do now, so.
I know there's been a lot of horror stories about Airbnbs, but I do see the short-term rental to the military pilots in training is slightly different. And you talked about cleaning. Is that just in between rentals you go in, or do you have a regular cleaning service that goes in?
Every month we clean it, of course, when they leave.
Okay, so that's part of your agreement with them, is that you're going to go in and, okay. And you will provide the neighbors with the means to contact you?
Yeah.
Are you going to, how do you envision that? What do you envision that looking like?
Haven't developed a plan, but it's a
Okay.
great plan, but I will notify. I haven't been as far as I'll start handing them out.
I think it would be good, I think, if they felt like they had a number or something they could contact or some sort of response.
Yes, ma'am.
I might add, if you don't mind, in terms of contacting, because obviously we know we have Airbnbs in the city, we know we have flop houses in the city. They're almost in every neighborhood, yes, they are. And some of them we don't know about at all, and sometimes there is a problem at one or two. The ability that we have as the city is when there is a very big issue, obviously the police are going to go first, right? We'll send them first. But if it's just an ongoing issue with noise or trash or something of that nature, from the staff perspective, we just go to the utility account, which has the owner's name and phone number and address and cell phone and everything else. and we can just contact them directly if in fact the homeowner or a neighbor can't get a hold of the owner themselves. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We do have the means of contacting all property owners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, looking at the concepts of the building themselves, I love them. For me, it fits in with the concept of and our long-range plan for that aviation district. We always say we're landlocked, so we have to think about, when we think about down the road, we have to move. If we're going to be doing anything, we have to build up because we can't build out. I like those concepts of the triplex, and especially in that area where we're talking about foot traffic, the concept of the aviation district, what we have for long-term plan, walkability, family areas. This fits in extremely nice. So I want to thank you for that, and I don't have a real big problem with it. I am going to come at this from another point as far as what Ms. Sefton's concerned. I too am concerned about that. It's not a deal breaker for me, but what we're saying is this is just for pilots. And to me, I'm looking at that area, anywhere in that area, on a long-term basis, if we allow this, it sets a precedence down the line to be able to do more short-term. I don't believe, for what we're looking at for the future, personally, that that's a great idea for that area. I like the longer term, so families can feel safe. And I'm not saying anything bad about, what you're talking about, I believe you're going to keep it up, and we have other ways of going with police and everything. I just don't see that area in the future being somewhere where short-term is a good idea on a big basis, because I see this concept here branching out into the neighborhood of the building up and down the road when you have to change your plan on your house and you're able to build it and whether to develop it, what are you going to do for the future of the city? This is, again, we can't grow, so this fits well in that plan. We have a plan down by in process behind the Walmart area on 1604, that area back there, that I see with the plans are going up, that might be a better place for short-term, the way they're looking at doing it over there, my personal opinion. Again, this is not a deal breaker for me, but I do not want to start, let's say, a precedence of, say, well, they allowed it there, and it branching out to be more and more down the line. And again, I'm not trying to think 5 years down the road, I'm trying to think 20, 30 years, 40 years down the road. So, but this is fantastic, I like it. And the way it builds out, I want one of these myself, actually. I love the third floor, especially, the way that's planned out. But anyway, that's all I have.
When we're talking about short-term rentals, not necessarily being specific, they would be for pilots, that fits into the specific use plan. The short-term rental would fit in this requirement for a specific use plan permit. Short-term rental, it fits into that.
Yeah, short-term rentals are permitted.
And it's not specified short-term rental for pilots.
No.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's the point. I think it's a little bit confusing strictly for pilots. That's being very, very inclusive. So anyway, that's my.
I think if you approve this, you're not approving short-term rentals. That's not what you're trying. That's not what you're approving.
This is for a specific use permit to allow you to change the density.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Because we do need a motion and a second. No, sir. I'm sorry.
I only one question, because he said about the people he got on a property in Universal City. Like me, I have the problem in 218 Rosewood Drive. The first we got In 2015, my landlord era Blue Bernard. We rent to him. The property, he sold the property to a company NCFRP-123 LLC. I come to the city, contact this office, no number, no email, only mailing address. How we can contact these people so we resolve this problem?
When we take a short break, I'd be glad to talk with you about that. We'll get you with staff. That's an
All right, thank you.
interesting statement, but we need to go back on the track for this particular item. Thanks for your interest, though. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I do need a motion made by Councilmember Najarian, second by Councilmember Fitzpatrick. Any discussion further on? All right, call for the vote then, please.
Was the motion Councilmember Najarian?
Aye. Yes.
Oh. Okay,
Yes.
just checking.
I'm sorry,
I got your
Fitzpatrick
vote
was
though. Councilmember Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman? No. Councilmember Vaughan?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Okay, thanks, sir. Let's press on. Let's move on to tab number C, discuss and to consider resolution 954-2023. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Universal City approving a project for the Universal City Economic Development Corporation as authorized by Section 505-158 of the Texas Local Government Code, authorizing certain financial assistance to be used for targeted infrastructure located within the city and providing for an effective date. Again, by the way, that other one we just passed, that's the first reading. Something comes up that you think is important, but obviously we can address that at the next reading. Okay, yes, Kristen.
Thanks, Mayor. Before council today for their consideration is resolution 954. That resolution's approval would authorize the EDC Bowie Street parking lot project. Back in October of 2022, the EDC acquired 119 East Aviation. It's about a half-acre parcel located between East Lindbergh and East Aviation down in our aviation district. While the market hasn't allowed for the EDC to acquire property adjacent to that property, it's been determined by the EDC that the best interim use for that property would be a public parking lot. The parking lot would serve as an additional parking for existing businesses, for the potential new business at 302 Pat River Road, and even potentially residential guest parking for the development that you just heard today. And it would be in line with the 2018 comprehensive plan goal that Michael presented in his presentation as well. The contract would be for professional services with 6S Engineering, and they would provide the survey, the design, bid phase services, and construction administration for that project. I'll touch the screen really quick so it doesn't turn off. And the amount of the project, or of this contract, I'm sorry, is $20,480. Some of the things that we would address in the design of the project would be lighting. Lighting is not called out in this contract. Public Works actually is going to work that separately. They did acquire some surplus light poles from a federal buyout program that they were a part of, and so he's looking to recycle that to light the parking lot. Landscaping will be considered. A lot of that hopefully will be done in-house, but we'll work with the designer or architect to design that in the parking lot. And then also pedestrian connectivity, how the pedestrians will get from that parking lot to the adjacent surrounding businesses. I am not in the business of developing parking lots. Randy has a lot more expertise in that, so he's going to kind of be the project lead for this and is here to answer any technical questions that you have related to the parking lot.
Okay, let me go ahead and entertain a motion first, and then I'll go into discussion. Move to approve. Second. Najarian. That's discussion. I'd like to address Chris on this. Mr. Sergeant, Ms. Buck, and we'll get you, Ms. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way I understand this, Ms. Mueller, is that this is an interim use as a public parking location until further implementation of the Aviation District Master Plan leads to it being put up for sale, for development, something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. If we're able to acquire adjacent properties and the use could change. Interim could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. It's really at the EDC's discretion.
Where does that property fit in the overall plan, the map for our vision plan of the future use for that location?
Sure, so the aviation plan as it was presented, that parcel is part of our town square. Like I had mentioned, the market hasn't allowed for us to acquire those adjacent properties, but those pieces of the puzzle in the aviation district are really able to be moved around. It's not so important as where they are located as much as it is that they're located in the plan.
Thank you. And last question, Mr. Mayor, if you could clarify, public means free or public means available to the public at a fee?
There is no intent at this time to charge for parking. It will be free.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good.
All right, so I have a couple questions. I didn't have a single resident that was for this. So I would like, why can we not, if this is temporary, why can we not just do a gravel and park at your own risk? Why does it have to be spent and spending all this money for something that's temporary? Is what everyone, I guess, asked.
We're not looking to do a concrete parking lot. It will be asphalt, so there's less of an expense there first. Two, we're still wanting it to look nice and presentable. We're still planning on lighting it. And like I said, interim could mean 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So if you're going to spend the money to invest in it, we'd like it to look nice.
But wouldn't it just be way cheaper just to throw down gravel? Am I wrong? Like just to throw down gravel and
Well, but
call it good?
for police, fire, and emergency services, you want to have what's called an all-weather surface. That means it's something that they'll be able to travel through at any time. And just plain rock or gravel a lot of times doesn't carry what they need, especially for fire trucks. It certainly doesn't carry the weight of a fire truck. So then you have issues with that. The other thing that you have to be concerned about when you are dealing with environmental issues, normally you do not want vehicles parked on rock or gravel because the oil and the condensation from their units drip into the ground, and then there's a potential for an environmental issue. So we always like to have them on asphalt or concrete so that we can catch those liquids that protrude from all vehicles, and then that way we don't have an environmental contamination.
So from the residents aspect, it just feels like it's a very expensive project for like no benefit to the residents other than possibly some people could park there, but if it was just gravel, they could also park there and it wouldn't cost the residents a lot of money. But I guess that's all I've got.
Okay, this one.
Do we have any rough cost estimate on what the parking construction would be?
We don't because we haven't designed it yet. We'll get the probable cost of construction at the 60-point design phase. Randy, do you have a ballpark of what you think this would cost?
Not at this time. There's going to be, the engineer's designing, he'll come up with an estimate, but there's going to be a lot of this that's going to be recycled.
Recycled asphalt.
Recycled base material and stuff that we incorporate. So we're going to do some of this in-house, and then we will contract for the concrete work and some asphalt work. But we will be, it'll be a cost plus with us doing it in-house. And so I look forward to the cost, whatever we get from the engineer, probably won't cost us that much to build it.
Back to Ms. Bulman's consideration about the parking surface. So I call it recycled asphalt. So when we have old parking lots that we rip up at parks and other city facilities, we stockpile that. So Randy's intending to reuse that rather than buy new asphalt, to reuse that asphalt for this one. So it is a cost savings to the city overall.
It's just hard to approve something if you don't know how much it's gonna cost in the end. So we approved $20,000 now, but we have no idea how much it's gonna cost in the long run to tell the residents that it's worth spending another $20,000, $30,000, $100,000, I don't know, because you don't know, so it makes it really hard to vote for something if you don't know what the full ticket's gonna be for the residents, like.
But that's the purpose of doing the engineering study, is to pay them to get us all of those cost estimates and design. And if that comes back, and then at that time the EDC and the city council thinks it's cost prohibitive, then you stop the project. If they think that there is a benefit to the parking with the dollar value that it's placed on, then you decide to move forward with the project. So it's just, the first step is just figuring out what is the probable estimated cost of construction.
And $20,000 is normal for, like that's a normal expense for a parking lot price?
This is a small parking lot, so yes, for this size parking lot, it is. A bigger parking lot is going to cost you more than
So if we come back at the 60%, they're gonna give us the cost estimate, right? And then at that point, if it's a yay or nay, you're not paying for CA, you're not paying for bid, you're not paying for all those pieces, so you're not
Correct,
out
just the
for
design portion.
just the initial design portion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. If there's no more discussion, let me call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
No.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
No.
Okay, that is 4-2. That passes. We'll move on to tab number D. Discuss and consider the 2023-2028 Emergency Medical Services Interlocal Agreement with the City of Church, Texas.
Mayor, Council.
I think we have a special guest.
Yes, this is Chief Jason. He is the chief of the Church EMS division, and he's going to be talking a little bit about his operation, and then we'll have some general discussion on the contract, and you're going to pull up his slide presentation.
Just right behind there.
Thank you.
I apologize, I thought I was here to do CPR class. Every day, do some chest compressions, and now, well, I gotta change my joke. It's probably getting old. So, Mayor, Council, I appreciate the opportunity to come over here and talk about EMS. We've had a long partnership. It's been great for us to provide ambulance transport to your residents. I also want to say that we have a great relationship with UCPD and UC Fire, so thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief, new Chief, congrats as well. So I'll try to make this brief. I'm passionate about EMS. I talk a lot, so please interrupt me if you have any questions about this at all. 5 years ago, when we started this agreement, this is what we look like. That orange outline is our area. We are now a medium-sized EMS agency, 230 square miles, and we serve a population of 150,000. This is what we look like today. So we added 3 trucks, one of them just right down the road at JDSA San Antonio Randolph. So every time we add another ambulance, that's good for UC because the truck here at UC stays here and runs UC calls. This is our call volume by fiscal year, and that blue line is a calls for service, and then the red line is transports. And you can see for the last couple of years, we have gotten crazy busy. COVID, we call it COVID year 1, COVID year 2, we're in COVID year 3 now. We actually had a decrease in calls, as you can see, but we have come back firing with calls. This is a heat map of what we look like. We put ambulances where the calls are. And so you see that those heat maps, so we do a pretty good job of putting ambulances where we're the busiest. If I isolate just Universal City, let's talk economies of scale. So the Universal City residents have access to 8 ambulances. And you can see how they're spread out across, and you can see specific days where we actually had 5 ambulances inside the city limits of UC back in December at 11:30 in the morning. In January at 11 o'clock at night, we had 3 ambulances on separate calls in Universal City. February, 4 calls at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And then again in April, this was very simple to find, where we're just not running 1 ambulance in Universal City. We've had multiple ambulances running multiple calls in Universal City. We are our second busiest city. This is where all the calls are over the last 3 fiscal years. Cibola is coming up fast, so don't call 911, but if you need us, call us. Response time, so average over the last 5 years, you can see it's actually starting to settle down a little bit over the last year and a half. About 6 minutes on average is our response time. Of course, we rely on UC Fire as well. Their response time is to get there first. You guys are well trained, so they can stabilize the patient, and then we get there and we'll transport if need be. Let's talk ambulance fees. We haven't changed our fees in over 10 years. They've been pretty steady, but we are expensive. Average ambulance bill is $1,500. which is a lot, and we realize that. We try to keep fees low. We try to keep our tax subsidies low as well. We are actually run from the city of Schertz as an enterprise fund. So we're not a general fund department, we're an enterprise fund. And you can see the fees there, so they range, like I said, $1,500, and it's also by miles as well. So why is EMS so expensive? I get this question all the time, and this slide explains it the best. Well, 30% of the time, we don't transport. We can't kidnap people. So we go to your house and they say, hey, just want to check you out. And do I need to go to the hospital? Do I have to go to the hospital? We make our recommendation. But 30% of the time, we don't transport. Well, unfortunately, we can't send a bill to anybody. There's no insurance company that's going to give us any money for refusals. And so 30% of our calls we get no funding from. About 25% for our area. People have Medicare, Medicaid.
Mr. Mayor, he said to stop him if we had a
Yeah,
question. Do you
please,
mind?
please.
Thank you very much. You said that 30% refuse transport and you get no money from that. If somebody called 911, somebody obviously requested your services, right? Whether you transport them or not, they've availed themselves of your service.
That's correct.
Do you not even send them a bill?
Yeah, let me correct that. If I go back to one side, here's on an 8 calls, $200 if we do something. We give some type of medication. So let's say it's a diabetic. We start an IV, give some sugar through their IV, and they wake up and they're like, nah, I don't want to go to the hospital. There is a fee for that. It's $200. But if we go to your house and you're like, hey, I think I'm having a heart attack, we hook you up to our heart monitor and we determine you don't have one and you don't want to go to the hospital by ambulance, there's no bill for that. We don't bill for that.
Very well. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Yeah, about 25% of your residents have Medicare, Medicaid, and because we accept Medicare, Medicaid, we accept what the federal government gives us. And so for those who have Medicare, we get about just over $400. Our average ambulance bill is $1,500. So we have to write off that $1,100. And then for those who have Medicaid, it's just over $200. So again, we have to write off $1,300 for those types of calls. So 47% make up the revenue for the less calls. So, Councilmember, you were asking what does EMS stand for?
I'm not being serious.
So I'm not really being serious, but I am. Expensive medical services. It's very expensive to run EMS. Just easy math, it's $1 million an ambulance is what you're looking at. And if you budget $1 million per ambulance, then you bought yourself an ambulance service. You can see the cost just in the last 5 years has skyrocketed. So we were looking at just the purchase of an ambulance and some of the equipment, about $379,000 5 years ago. Now it's over $500,000 for an ambulance. And so you can see those price increases. And it's basically an emergency room on wheels. The other question I get, these 2 more questions I get is, what does an ambulance call actually cost? So again, doing some easy math, in fiscal year 22, my expenses were $11.6 million. We ran just over 13,000 calls. Divide those 2 numbers together, $862. So every time we run a call, it costs us $862. So those are our expenses. That's what the easiest math I can do. Now, cost of readiness versus use of services, the other thing I get. So Universal City pays money for us to provide EMS. Well, then why do we bill residents? So I look at this as a cost of readiness versus use of service issue. So you're paying for a cost of readiness. You're paying for 2 paramedics to sit in your station and wait for that call, just like your fire department. And then sometimes we're called. And so that's the use of service. How I can compare this to is the water department. So the water departments are paid for by your tax dollars. But use of service, so if Chief Perna wanted to fill his pool, and he wants to spend that money on filling his pool with water, he can fill a pool. And I don't want to fill a pool, well then he needs to pay for that extra water use. And that's kind of similar with EMS. So we're there providing cost of readiness, and that's what you guys are paying for. And then if we are used, then we do bill for that. We do try to bill insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid as well. We will work with folks as well. Just full disclosure, this is what all of our cities, and we also have the county contract for Guadalupe County, and then we have the base as well. So full disclosure, that's what everybody gives us. About 35% of our operating costs come from what I call a tax subsidy, city subsidy, the county and the base. Even the city of Schertz has to pay their fair way as well, and it's based on a per capita model. So I even invoice our city quarterly as well, just like the commercial city. So that's what those costs are. And then of course the other 65% is the ambulance revenue, is what we're collecting and off of. Real briefly about inflation, we've all felt this. We go to the grocery store and we're paying some pretty incredible prices. Same thing with our medical supplies, ambulances. You know, it takes 2.5 years to buy an ambulance. Right now, everything's delayed with chassis and chips and vehicles and chassis. And we've had a huge increase in inflation. Fortunately, luckily, we're seeing that inflation numbers come down, thankfully, but we're not seeing the prices come down. We're seeing inflation come down, but the prices are still at the same height. And I think, like I said, you guys feel that at the grocery store. We're feeling that too. Our current agreement ends the end of September. What it says is we adjust the population. We do this by estimates, which has been difficult. The census only updates every 10 years. And back in 2020, in the midst of COVID, I was hoping it would be a little bit more accurate, but we found they did a little bit too high of estimates in some cities. The other part of the agreement says that we will increase the per capita based on the cost of inflation for medical care services, not to exceed 3%. So that gives you some budget numbers to work with. You know we're going to adjust your population, and you know we're not going to go over 3% on that per capita number. In fiscal year 23, we're looking at, it was $16.10 per residence. So for your population, and that's how we got the number of that 345, 554, 30. And that's the current agreement. Like I said, it ends the end of September. So even though we can go up on 3%, in March is usually where I see that number and that cost of inflation compared to the year before. And you can see last March, the actual number was 2.9%. We only went up 2%. I guess I could have thrown in that 2.9% as well. The March before that, it was 2.7. We went up 2%. We didn't go up the max that we could have done 2.7. Trying to keep costs low for everyone. In March 2020, unfortunately, inflation was 5.5. So we did go up the max 3% on that. The year before that was 2.2, we went up 2%. March 2018, it was 2.1, we did 2%. And we also adjusted populations as well. We are looking to have another agreement for 5 years, and it's not going to change too much. We did have a 6% increase in our per capita, so it's going from 1610 to 1707, mostly because of inflation. We'd like to continue to adjust population estimates as well, but not to exceed the cost of inflation for medical care services of 3%. For UC, we actually adjusted your population down, trying to again adjust that to where it looks a little bit better of a number. So you're actually seeing a decrease in EMS funds overall of almost $3,000. So it'd be $342,714. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
You do a phenomenal job for myself. Mr. Vaughan.
You mentioned that you're an enterprise fund, so I pulled up your financial statements, and you had a pretty good year for 2022. And so I'm just thinking, is there been any kind of discussion about over the next 5 years, if your calls are up and you make more money, that can be shared among all the participants? Not that we want money back, but I mean to lessen some of those cost increases over time.
So we would, yes, I would think anything is on the table. And what we would do is we would, like what we did with the cost of inflation, just not go up to what we could have, if that makes any sense. I will tell you, I don't know what is a good year for us. I actually had to write off some bad debts at our city council tonight that I got out of, thank you. But I write off about $2.6 million a year in bad debts. So that's,
Which would be included in this.
it is included in that.
Yeah,
as
top line, you're about 9.5 million, and you netted about 1.3 on that. So it's, I mean, I'm not trying to claim it's good. I'd rather you have that than be in the hole. But I just wonder since we're locking in over 5 years, if there's any opportunity to, if they could come out really well at the end of that 5 years, that we get some consideration.
If I had my way, I wouldn't charge the cities anything if I was collecting them out. And we do operate in the black, not in the red as well. I buy ambulances with cash as well. That's new for the last 3 years, as opposed to financing them over 5 to 7 years like we did in the past. So I try to basically, I use our budget like I do my personal finances as well. I don't like debt. And I do the same thing with our budget.
And everybody else is paying $17.07 per resident, so we can't.
All of our cities. Yes, all of our cities, so it's fair that everybody, that's kind of how we talk about, even the city assurance as well.
In the contract, it talks about dispatch, that it has to go through you. Can you just talk to that briefly? So if somebody calls 911, where's the call going and how does it get to you?
So it doesn't have to go through us, and how it works is a little archaic, honestly. So you guys actually dispatch us, our ambulance hears that. Our dispatch center is listening as well, and they then dispatch us as well. Now, what we do here though is we also provide pre-arrival instructions. So if you have a case where somebody is trying to do CPR, you can actually forward that call to our dispatch center and we will give them pre-arrival instructions on how to do CPR or how to do any type of care. So all of our dispatchers are trained that way.
So our dispatchers are answering first? Is that what's happening? Or?
Yes.
And then they're calling you if it's a ambulance call?
They can transfer that 911 call. It's very seamless. But they're dispatching your rescue, so your fire department, so there's no delay. If our ambulance is in-house, we hear that as well, and we start making our way to the ambulance as well. And then our dispatch center is listening to the radio. When they hear that, then they dispatch that. It's through the CAD, so that way all the times are documented accordingly.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I talked to a lot of residents and asked them how they felt about this, about their EMS, and I just wanted to let you know, every single person said, you guys are wonderful, amazing, they've had nothing but wonderful experiences, and they're very much looking forward to doing another 5-year contract. So I just thought you should know that I had nothing but glowing reviews for the Sharks EMS. And I've also used you for my own kid, and it was amazing, so.
It's good to hear. How many complaints we get? We get no complaints about our patient care. Our medics are great. So same thing with your firefighters. It's usually just about a bill. And it's about every other month we get complaints about the bill, and it's unfortunate. Now we are actually looking at, it says city assurance or Shirts EMS everywhere in ambulances. We are actually looking at adding some additional lingo. We're going to be talking to you, of course, and serving these communities as well. We'd like that as well, because there is some confusion every once in a while. It's like, well, why is Shirts here, transporting here? So we have to explain that as well.
And I might add, as a pitch for our fire department and their training, so you use EMTs, but a lot of our fires, actually I think most of our older firefighters for sure, are also EMTs. So that's why if they're not in station or they're on a call or further away when the call goes in, that's why our fire department can go and address that resident's needs first and while they're en route.
So that's actually something Jason and them just helped us do 2 years ago. We got us our first responder license. So Shirts was instrumental in getting all of the agencies registered with the state as first responder entities. So all of our guys are all trained and we carry our own license now as first responders. So that was done by Shirts.
I can't say enough about your
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
I had the opportunity recently to get an up-close tour kind of an ambulance and really learn all of the things that are in there and all the capabilities. And I have to say I was really blown away. And your comment that you said very quickly, it's like an emergency room on wheels, really has the ability to serve as an emergency room on wheels. It was very impressive.
Yeah, one of the things we're now carrying is whole blood, which is just incredible to think about. So that's usually maybe, you're thinking about maybe a helicopter, but we now have it that we can give as well, so lots of blood.
So I think we have mutual admiration here, so I'll be glad to entertain it.
We'll give it for a second.
Najarian, second. Goolsby, further discussion?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for coming out tonight, I appreciate it. I would just like to say that I'm throwing my full support behind this because $342,700-ish to provide the residents of our great city with a capable, ready, and responsive EMS service is something that I fully support. So thank you very much for you coming out here tonight, I appreciate it.
All right, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bug.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'll tell you what, we've gone 2 hours now. Let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Excuse me.
I didn't see anybody objecting to that. Yeah, about 2 hours is about enough time. We're gonna have to start making.
So, just so you know, you need to.
Hey, everybody, we'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting. There it is. Okay. We thought. We didn't see you, Phil. All right. All right, let's move on then to tab number 2. Discuss and to consider STRAC Interlocal Cooperation Agreement and Business Associate Agreement, Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council, what that stands for. So I'll turn it over to
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is actually a software program that is used by the fire department for patient care as well as fire emergency resource tracking. And so this particular contract gives them the use of that service. That's the first part. And then the second half of it is the business associate agreement. And that's basically dictates how the data that's provided is protected. Any questions for Chief Brennan? Myself?
Yeah.
Do you want anything to that, Chief?
Just one of the great things that the image trend is who they're transferring from, which was tablet PCR before. But what's going to be great about this, it's also going to take place of our emergency reporting, which is our RMS system. So it's really great that we'll be able to get rid of that this year and combine those services, and now we'll be able to have it all in one location, which is going to be great, and at a lot cheaper cost.
Let me go ahead and entertain a motion and see if there's any questions.
Mr. Cruz?
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Second.
Councilmember Najarian. Okay, open for discussion. Any comments? So it's going to be much more costly. Okay, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bug.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman. Aye. Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Well, the motion passes. We move on then to, there's another no tab, tab 4. We're going to have a public safety presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. As you well know, when some of you were out on the streets knocking on doors and getting to know our residents in our city a little bit better, one of the comments that came up, and actually almost comes up every year, is about safety. And, you know, it's a nebulous term. What do people mean when they say they don't feel safe? Is it they don't feel safe in their home, they don't feel safe in their neighborhood, you know, they hear sounds, we don't know what that means. So the general discussion that we had was, you know, maybe we can have a public safety presentation. So I've asked our 2 chiefs and residents to go ahead and put a presentation for you, which they will do, and then of course we'll answer questions when they're done.
Okay.
Chiefs?
Good evening, council, citizens, and staff. Thank you. So we weren't really sure the direction or what council had intended by this, so what we thought we would provide is like a State of the Union type of addressing, giving you a rundown on some resources that we've acquired in the last year or 2. Some statistics on call volume and some of those types of things, and then entertain questions if that sounds okay for what you have planned.
It's really difficult to anticipate your questions, so we'll see what we can do about trying to answer all your questions. Go ahead. You wanted to start talking about some of the ARPA funds?
Yeah, so primarily out of ARPA funding and with some general fund supplemental stuff. Most of our resources we've acquired include new MDCs, the mobile data terminals, mobile data computers, the PD Smart Board for updates for emergency operations because it is our EOC, for training for several uses, the exterior fencing to protect the last remaining generator that we had here on site and the back electrical to our city, new in-car camera redacting software and warranties, AEDs for our vehicles, which we've deployed on several occasions. I've issued probably 3 or 4 life-saving awards in the last year or two. I wanted to make a comment earlier on the EMS portion that in addition to their EMTs, we have several paramedics and 1 nurse that several have received a life-saving award because of the swifter response as a result of our response times as well. The Shade Pro car shades, which are preventing our equipment from deteriorating and having to be replaced so quickly, and obviously keeping the cars at a cooler temperature and hail with the volatile storms that we have with some of the warming concerns. We've added 2 officers, a mental health and a traffic unit, which the traffic unit has only been applied on a part-time basis because we aren't fully staffed quite yet, but we're working diligently and almost there. The flare storage that we needed to have for our flares to keep them out of the building. A new warrant vehicle, which was approved and purchased through courts, but also I believe it might have come from, or maybe perhaps not, that might have been a general fund line item that comes out of the court security. PD vehicle cameras, the Fence Pro shading that we have so that we can have some discretion on what we're carrying in and out of our building, and also to provide a little more discretion for prisoners that we might be transporting, things of that nature. So we're not in the business of humiliation. We had 1 shield when I arrived here. 1 shield, and I know that we all know the fallout surrounding Uvalde, correct? And I was, however you want to look at this, fortunate or unfortunate enough to have been there shortly after it came to a close. One of the observations we made was that we were the only agency there with a shield. Now we know that there was at least 1 inside. Okay, I'm not here to debate that, but I was appalled that no other agencies having deployed ballistic shields. One of the first purchases we made when we got here was additional shields. We had 1. It was used for high-risk warrant service. And we realized quickly that we needed 1 in every car, so we immediately staffed 1 level 3 ballistic shield, which is rifle rated, for every unit that we have. A new ATV, which we use obviously at the creek the majority of the time, but for special events and certainly for the suicidal subjects that wander down towards Pacifico Creek, for missing kids that we get down there periodically, for criminal mischief at the golf course or the frisbee golf. It's used frequently for looking for transients at some of the more difficult areas to get to. IFAC headrest kits in every one of our cars as well. Those contain stop the bleed type stuff, the tourniquets and things of that nature. Again, in preparation for active shooters. It's not if, it's when. We subscribe to several mantras here. One of them is love is an opportunity meets preparation. So we believe in being prepared, and CM Turner has been extremely gracious in her support of that endeavor, again, to provide excellence in service to our citizens and make sure that we're ready to answer the call when it comes out. New patrol unit shotguns, our previous ones were 25 plus years old. They were here long before I got here the first time in 2002. Several new ballistic vests, not a full turnover, but several new ones to accommodate the new employees. A breaching tool, a kinetic breaching tool that we've used several times on high-risk warrants, and that will prevent our officers from going out on workers' comp from throwing a shoulder or a back or a knee or hip or anything else. As you can imagine, swinging a 40-pound ram into a door can create some significant twisting and torquing issues. This kinetic tool, you hold it in place, you launch it, it blows the door open for us. I say blows, it's not a charge. It just punches out and smacks the door open. It works fantastically. We did a house apartment up here on a very serious call with a 2-year-old that was critically injured and will remain that way for family violence. Stepdad or daddy was beating on that 2-year-old. Anyway, when we served his warrant, blue suiter out here, by the way, this great Star Country and the Air Force, but nonetheless, we used it up there at Arty Grove, and it worked fantastic. That'll save the city money in the long run, and it'll serve us well and provide a faster entry, a more guaranteed entry. A forcible door entry training, Chief, I think I left that on mine, I didn't mean to. That was a joint one that we got together, and Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having
You speak a lot slower, I gotta tell you. Just say it. I have trouble listening that fast.
I recognize y'all from out of here too.
He's just as high strung as I am most of the time. So, I just wanted to kind of mention, obviously it's really hard for us to anticipate the questions that you may have. Obviously the fire department, we aim towards being transparent, obviously. Our jobs are difficult. I was fortunate enough to work with this group for the last 5 years as the assistant chief, and now I get to work with them in the capacity as the chief. But we're running record calls. Our guys are extremely busy. On top of running all the calls, we're in the community. We have fire prevention, our canine dogs in all the schools. We just got done running Heroes Camp. We had 23 kids in the fire station all week. Some of you I got to see at our graduation on Saturday. So we're just like all the other agencies. But when it comes to the equipment, we're very fortunate here in Universal City that we've been able to leverage some of that ARPA funds to get us some of that state-of-the-art equipment. And some of those things that we were able to do this year is get that shoot time out the door. We were able to pick that up through station alerting. Sure TMS has a station alerting system in our station. It's called the Phoenix system. They paid about $80,000 to have that system put in, but it only dispatches Sure TMS. So we did our homework and we studied, and our guys had taken little lights off of the vehicle and put them up in the gym and some other places where when the tones went off, it would light these old lights that they had to try to get their attention when the music's on and they're lifting weights. And we made do for so many years. We were fortunate enough to use some of that money and get a station alerting system in there. Now that activates these guys no matter where they're at, bathroom, bunk rooms, gymnasiums when they're working out, and it gets them out the door quicker on that call because not only do they see the light come on, it's giving us pre-alerts that are coming out on our phone and in the station almost a minute and a half before the actual dispatch sets the tones, which is getting our shoot time out the door much, much quicker. It's been great. We did it for about $36,000 versus $80,000 with that Phoenix system. And it does everything that they were able to do. Obviously, Chief spoke on the mobile, the CAD systems now. We didn't have that when I started. We were pen and paper on everything, patient reporting. We have CAD. We're getting real-time, up-to-date info as we're responding to the call. We have sent all of our guys this last year through the Chief, I don't know if you mentioned that, mobile integrated AAIR training, which is the active shooter. We've been over there. Obviously, in light of Uvalde, it's been very critical to make sure that our city is prepared. If that emergency was to arise in our city, we're ready.
So prior to sending them, if I may say something, sure. Prior to sending them to that school, which by the way we partnered with DPS and Schertz School District. That was one of our goals when I arrived here, was take advantage of a couple of these vacant schools we had on the south end. Schertz was accommodating with Rose Garden. We've had a carte blanche for the last year and have ran nothing but active shooter training through that school, and the air class, which is the active incident, active response, engaged, or it's the cooperative response, integrated response. Thank you. Prior to that, though, we have had on the books plan for our agencies, collective agencies, to do a joint active shooter training, which we did at Coronado in concert with their in-service training teachers and with the support of the principal there, where we conducted a full-scale exercise utilizing some of our employees and several of our Citizens Police Academy volunteers to conduct a readiness assessment. And so those are the types of things that we are doing for this city and to answer the bell when it should have rang.
And the collaboration between PD and fire and making sure our guys have the right equipment has been phenomenal by the city and making sure we're at a ready state.
Fire now has ballistic vests and helmets so that they can go to these warm zones and start treating folks. That was important to us and a big tool. We've used it real time with shootings that we had last year. In fact, after the budget workshop last year, I ended up sleeping in my office on the cot I brought with me from Castle Hills because we had a shooting at 10 o'clock. As soon as we wrapped up in here, we went and worked that shooting over at Sable Ridge, gangsters out of Compton. Compton Fire was able to suit up and come into that warm zone as we covered them. The scene was not entirely secure, but there was a person bleeding out there. So these types of things that pay dividends in real world application.
We were able to leverage the addition of that mental health officer in the fire department as well. So not only do we have, as a matter of fact, we just got a compliment on him today. The guys are doing exceptional work out there in this mental health. And not only are we seeing an increase of mental health in our community, we're also seeing an increase of mental health in obviously public service.
And it wasn't just your standard run-of-the-mill kudos. There was so much emotion in this email that you know that the mom was crying as she wrote it. Because that's her 15-year-old son that in years past would just kind of get manhandled to stop the situation, where our proactive efforts with the mental health unit have gone out, established the rapport with some of these folks that we've identified in our cities. And when we arrived and he was in full-on crisis mode, tearing the house up and trying to assault their younger sibling, he recognized our Officer Todd and Officer Logan Yee, and Firefighter Todd, excuse me, and Officer Logan Yee, and immediately went to work with him and calmed down on site. It's fantastic, and you read the emotion in that. And that's just one instance. We're doing that with all the folks that we have dealt with on emergency detentions. We're finding resources outside of our city never found before. And on that note, and this is important to note, we are on again, the call volume is record level stuff. And that's not just us, that's across the country. When you throw in liberal DAs, and I don't care about that stuff, but the application at the booking, at intake, it emboldens criminals, and so there's more of it, and our arresting still has to take place. There still has to be a police response and a fire response as needed to certain calls. But the lion's share of our resources are going to the emergency detentions, the mental crisis situations that we're facing. We are on par right now at the midterm of the year to break our previous record of 154 by 50. So a 25% increase or so. Councilman Vaughan, I didn't crunch that number very fast. If you want to jump in there, correct me, I'll take it. But it's a substantial increase, and one that we've seen coming and that we've taken efforts to combat, if you will. I don't mean that in the exact use of that word, but
we need to combat. We have the appropriate equipment. We've been adding a policeman and a fireman every year for the last couple of years, one additional with the traffic cop, and then obviously proposing, because it's in the comprehensive plan.
But they take a large portion of our resources, yes, because they require us to transport them, yes, to the appropriate psychiatric ward that is dictated by, and I forget the name of it, it's a dispatch center that does it just for that stuff and tells you which hospital is best suited for that type of patient, and it could be on the other side of San Antonio. So it takes our folks out of commission for an hour and a half, 2 hours, almost daily, at least every other day by the numbers that we're on part of to hit this year.
So the mental health officer their job is to either be the first responder for that particular situation, or to take the officers who are stuck in that situation and relieve them and put them back in the streets, and then the mental health officers can carry out and follow through with the mission.
How many do we have?
Two, one in police and one in fire.
We do have one for each, okay.
One in police and one in fire.
Those were added into the ARPA budget.
Okay, thank you.
So we're seeing something new this year too with, I don't know if y'all have paid attention to the MAC building that's over there at the Morgan's Wonderland. They have put on, San Antonio Fire put on a full-time mental health officer in there. And what happens is when they reach out to the MAC for that mental health type of help, they've been referring them to us. So we've started seeing referrals, and quite a few in the last year since the MAC has been up, of residents that live in our community that reach out for help from the MAC, and then they refer them to us, and then I pass that on to our mental health. He reaches out to that family in our area and says, hey, we're with the fire department. Do you have any needs or any concerns or anything? Some of them may be, they have children that has some type of a disorder like this gentleman we're talking about, and we put that in the CAD notes. Hey, he's aggressive, but he has a rapport with Officer Todd. Those notes become key.
And they get those notes real time, through our dispatch center, through their MDCs.
And it's key in that emergency.
Additionally, I'd like to mention that the mental health officers are not just for our customers external to our organization, they're for our team internal too. They're part of our peer-to-peer network. And as anybody knows, as I've told the Citizens Police Academy on numerous times, law enforcement per capita leads the nation in 4 categories that I'm not proud of. I'm proud about everything about this profession. I'm as passionate as it gets. But we lead it in chemical dependency. We lead it in divorce rates. We lead it in, I always say this backwards, but is it high mortality rates? We die young and fast and often, sadly. Your average age lifespan is 62, and that's a generous age. It's usually 59, honestly. They just give it 62 so they can keep pushing our amortized retirement out. Actually, I think TMRS says 72. That's not happening for your average cop. It's 62 on the high. And finally, suicide. There's something inherently wrong with the profession and the extended exposure to life's worst tragedies, right? We know this to be a fact. And so those officers also serve in that capacity internally to our folks that might struggle with an incident. We see plenty of heinous stuff out here from everything you can imagine in family violence to murders, to shootings, to carnage at crash scenes. And those aren't one-offs, those aren't anomalies. We're a busy city, a busy suburb.
So you mentioned the adding of the additional firefighters and police officers each year. Our guys operate at a 5-man minimum staffing. There's some rules that we need to adhere to through NFPA, and that's that 2 in, 2 out rule, so we can't drop below that 5-man minimum staffing. So we've said for years, look, if we can keep that minimum staffing at 5 and we bring that additional fireman on each year, it has cut our overtime. There's built-in overtime naturally based on the firefighter's schedule. But that additional overtime that we, because of minimum staffing, we have watched that number decrease every year by adding those 2 additional firefighters. And obviously this year we're coming back and asking to finish that off, and that'll balance out them 3 shifts. And I think, obviously we can't make overtime go away, but if we can keep decreasing it, it's a win for us tremendously. So we're very thankful that you've been helping support that.
Thanks. Thank you, Chief. Any specific comments that anybody would like to have? Mr. Vaughan, then we'll give Ms. Bulman.
Well, I'd like to apologize to you guys for making you come tonight. It's kind of my request.
No, sir. No problem.
And making you stay this late, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
I know my police academy buddies up here probably know all of this, but I don't. So my goal was to hopefully hear you tell us a little bit about what your policing strategy is for the city. And in the reports that are usually in our packets, I don't really know exactly how to understand it, but you've got the 5 districts. And do you track response times by district, or do you try to have an officer in each district, or how do you manage that?
A little of both. A little of both, yes, sir. I mean, we also hotspot police, right? And we know our trouble areas. We know our higher volume areas. So yes, a little bit of all 3. We certainly have patrol buys in every district. So at some point, there's officers on every shift getting through every district, and certainly we shoot for every street. But that's sometimes difficult to do when you're chasing calls. Our overall call volume, not just emergency detentions, is on record pace as well, which includes all the other calls that we do get, whether it's transients, whether it's social services, whether it's counseling somebody, whether it's arrest, whether it's criminal mischief, all the other calls aggregated. So yes to all of that. And if you wanted to ask about general philosophy, the first and foremost thing we do is hire the right folks. And Jim Collins, get the right people. And human resource is not your greatest asset. The right human resources are. I spend an endless amount of time at the local police academies, where I also am an adjunct, and recruiting for our city. We start with hiring the right folks, because the right human resources are your best asset. And so we get the right mentality in here. Status quo doesn't work here. Start with proactive policing, community policing minded folks with high integrity, high character folks, and that's what we look for. So it starts there, Councilman Vaughan. And then from there, it goes to bringing value to our team. And value comes in a number of forms. It comes in traffic enforcement. It comes in foot patrols. It comes in community relationships. It comes in throwing a football with the child, wherever you might happen to pass by and see it, or shooting a hoop somewhere. So the philosophy is a large umbrella, and it encompasses a multitude of approaches that I think over time we have seen is the right approach. Partnering with the community. The greatest form of policing we have are the citizen phone calls that we don't get that often, that we encourage incessantly. In every document we send out, in every Facebook post, or everything, please follow us, please notify the police of anything suspicious. No, if you're contemplating calling us, it's already too late, you should have called. That type of messaging is going on constantly, because y'all can be the eyes and the ears that we're in places that we can't be. We can't put a cop on every street, every minute of the day. We can't be everywhere. We have a finite number of them, as you know, 3 on shift, usually, sometimes 4. And for a busy suburb, that's a demand. But one that we're holding down. We're getting backlogged on the CID end, the investigative end on the back end, because patrol begats CID. As patrol calls go up, guess what else goes up? CID work and effort on the back end. We have the same number of detectives that we had in 02 when I started, that we had 20 years before then, 3. And our call volume has gone up exponentially since then, obviously. And last year I came to you for a detective. I'm not trying to jockey for that. I'm just simply saying last year I came for a detective. It got marginally close to getting approved. It was not. I will be asking for that resource again this year in hopes that this presentation and things that you may have learned or gleaned since last year will have paid dividends in that regard, so that we can better serve our citizens and our shareholders.
Where are we? Where can you give us an update where we are on staffing? Are we?
So we're about
all the positions we've authorized full? Or?
Absolutely. So we're authorized 34. I'm asking for a 35th. We're authorized 34. One of those is the ARPA, and one's a traffic unit, of course. We probably are sitting at 31. I say probably. We have 3. It's kind of dynamic and fluid. We have 3 in FTO. We've got 2 in the academy right now. We're looking to send another. So I can sit here and do the math. It's about 31 that we have currently that are cops, 3 in they're sworn, but 3 of them are in FTO, so we're probably at 29. Those 3 graduate in about a month, and will be released from their FTO duties, and that'll get us to about 32. And then that will be what we normally know as our normal full. And then there's the 2 additional from last year. So 32 will be a win for us. And I feel compelled to tell you this. University City ain't losing a recruiting battle. I'm here to tell you right now, our efforts over there, we get the best of the best, and every other agency knows it. And none of them work as hard as we do to do that. I set the hook, but these folks here reel it in. They reel it in when these folks are attending swearing in ceremonies that we have, and the citizen, the rest of the city team comes out to it. They're reeling it in when all the stuff I'm telling them at the academy, they get here on a ride out, and they go, man, that sheet wasn't full of crap. I almost said something else, I apologize. They see that it's actually living and breathing and true. And with the passion that I bring to that academy, man, there's no denying. I mean, you know when someone means what they're saying. So that's about where we're at. We're winning the war. Other agencies are not so fortunate. There's numerous agencies that are down 20 and 30%. We're not there. I mean, we're there right now, but the folks we have in the queue bring us out of that substantially.
And are we losing any turnover-wise, or?
The only ones we have lost, Councilman Vaughan, and I'm proud and not proud to say this, are the ones that didn't deserve to wear our patch or badge. We haven't lost anybody to a sister agency except one that wasn't welcome here, and he found a home at one of the local sister agencies, and more power to him. But I have high standards. I have high expectations for our police. Y'all deserve it. Your citizens deserve it. Your constituents deserve it. The staff here deserves it, and they're going to get it under our watch.
Okay, one more question, and I'll yield. It's probably not a popular one, but I know that like Live Oak does Selma's dispatch and Shirts does Civil O's. In your opinion, what downsides would there be to one of them handling our dispatch for us?
So I've lived that as a police officer, and so has Chief here. And the downside is, first and foremost, is going to be response times. Oftentimes there's a call tree that's associated with that because their call volume goes up, so they try to make it more efficient on their end through call trees. Castle Hills looked at doing this when I was there. Bexar County was the only option they had at the time. And response times went from about 3.5 minutes. We're at about 4 because we're a little bigger city, which is very fast. And by national standards, it's 3 times as fast, maybe 4 times as fast. And with the population of ours, a sensitive population, and sensitive, I mean an aging population, response time as I get older, as Father Time is undefeated, I know that I want a fast response time. So response time would be the first concern that I would have. And then we have a laundry list, and Chief can speak to some of those things while I pull that up.
I've been fortunate enough, Councilman, to work for a couple cities who have transferred their dispatch centers and had somebody else do it. One, I challenge you to listen to the services that go out. So like Converse, for instance, got rid of their dispatch, went to Bexar County. The residents, in their time of need, they need emergency services. They pick up the phone, they go to what they call call takers. Those call takers say, do you need police, fire, or EMS? And then it's that call taker's job to determine where that call goes from there. So there's a delay in while this is all happening. Sometimes they even wait on hold while they're screaming and need help. They go into a queue where they get put on hold, then they get transferred, and then they say, okay, we're getting you to fire, we get fire. Now fire has to call us and get us going on the call, so there's a huge delay in that time. When I worked at the Sheriff's Office before I was at Kendall County, they gave up dispatching and gave it to the city of Vernon. And every one of the cities or counties that I've worked for in my years, 30-something years in the service, have all regretted once you give up that dispatch center, it's extremely hard to bring it back. And they realized at that time that it was a horrible decision, and now it wasn't cost effective to reopen.
I worked there as well. Chief and I were there together a long time ago for a brief period of time. I was on the Bernie PD side, he was on the Kendall County SO side, the law enforcement side. I heard I felt their complaints. I heard them, we broke bread together. They weren't the priority. Bernie PD was the priority.
The reality
University City
is,
doesn't become the priority if we're not our own dispatch center.
nobody's going to take care of your city the way that you take care of your city. When I was in Atascosa County as the emergency manager in the fire department, I actually saw them wrapped up in a pursuit and forget to set off the tones for a fire call when there was a fire going on. There was 2 dispatchers, both extremely involved in the pursuit. They took a 911 call for a fire and got caught up in the call, and this one thought this one dispatched it. This one thought this one dispatched it. In all reality, they missed that call and they never got dispatched.
Additionally, I want to talk to some efficiencies that go away. Efficiencies and investigations, when our detectives can walk down the hall and run somebody right away and have a real-time criminal history in front of them. Deficiencies in fusion intelligence, TLETS access, regional bulletins and BOLOs, teletypes, weather updates, applicant processing. We lose out on the Bear Metro grants that provides most of our equipment in that dispatch center. That dispatch center runs primarily for just the cost of salary. So when you look at outsourcing that cost minus the cost of your current salaries, you're down to $170,000 perhaps, somewhere in that range. Not a large sum of money for the response time and all the benefits the citizens gain by that, as well as the efficiency that our officers gain in serving those citizens. Furthermore, we have in the past, and we used to do it when I was at Castle Hills, dispatch for other agencies. I had an agency reach out to me recently as I just took over the presidency of the Alamo Area Police Chiefs Association and asked what we could do that for. Today we kind of negotiated a price or brokered a price internally, not with this external agency yet, that also would further offset any costs the dispatch center has and allow us to staff it with another officer. We're already remodeling, which is long overdue, to account for a third console because our call volume has gone up, so that the additional console will be there. So we're looking at some of these other remedies to offset some of the costs there and bring in greater value to that dispatch center. You know, we have a saying, good is fine unless better is available. And our folks have heard me say it twice today, both at breakfast and again at lunchtime, somewhere in that vicinity, when we were having some conversations. So we value the input, we value the dialogue, but we're always working, you know, without it as well, just so you know. We never rest on our laurels.
I would ask you to talk to some of the other chiefs that are working in some of these other cities that are using the live oak dispatch and early commerce dispatch center and see how they feel about it. Because the chiefs meetings and stuff that I've been at, they've all not really been happy with the service. I think that if anything, if we're going to look at costs effective for our city and making sure we're taking care of our city in the way that we have been with our quick response times, we should be considering being that big city to take on other agencies and say, we'll make sure we're taking care of our folks, but we'll also dispatch for you.
2 points, real quick, 2 points. Our dispatch center transcends the entire city. Animal control, public works, certainly, fire, police. It's not just a first responders thing. It transcends the entire city. Walk-ins. Just the other day, we had a walk-in of dog bite. It was an attack. It was a felonious attack. Grandson sicked his Belgian Malinois on his granddad. Belgian Malinois was an attack dog. Yeah, it's very bad. Councilman Buck, I know you know what that is. It's the ones you see on cops and stuff that are just it's crazily athletic and have the bite strength of no other animal. Anyway, almost took his thumb off. They knew that there would be somebody in this building when they got here. And it was after hours. I happened to be still up there. It was about 7 o'clock. That's one of thousands of examples. There were people that walked in a while ago. Did you have something to add on how efficient it is for you, Randy? I know you had mentioned something. I forget.
By getting rid of dispatch, I would have to, for public works, have to contract out a third party to answer my calls currently, and they charge by the call. So that would be animal control, streets, parks, everything and anything. And they read from the script. So they're reading from the script, then goes to whoever I have on call, and then they got to answer all the questions. So it's a domino effect, how it affects.
I believe they're monitoring all of our fire alarms in the city too, because it's a 24-hour center. So if that was to go away, we would have to have an independent third party be monitoring all the fire alarms.
That was the other point I wanted to make. The chief for EMS spoke to a point here earlier. He said because our dispatch center dispatches fire and police right away, their boxes, their ambulances that sit in our firehouse often, and usually there's one in there every day and almost every time of the day, or get that early response time as well. So their response times for our city are faster because of our dispatch center assigning our folks a call. I can speak as a subject matter expert and what you hired me to do, but I understand the efforts in cutting and saving money. I fully get that. I don't think the bang is worth the cost effectiveness is here. It's not worth the bang's not worth the buck. But obviously that's a council decision at some point.
Thank you again, guys.
Bet.
Okay, I'm trying, so we're not here forever. I do have a couple questions. You might not have the answers for these, and that's fine. You can touch base with me later. Do you know how many hours our police officers are actually on the road patrolling versus like at their desk? Do you have a ratio or no? Or
that would probably take me more of my time to try and flesh that out. I can tell you, if I see them at the desk, I'm on their case about what do you got, what are you working on, and why aren't you on the road? But as call volume goes up, you spend a little bit more time at the desk, right?
Yeah.
And that's another reason why you need a cop or two every now and then, so that you can keep folks on the road and still take the call volume. To give you an exact number, no, but I can tell you, I am very proactive in hit the road. I don't want you wasting time. Get your shift turnover, get your stuff, get your gear, get on the road. And no one demonstrates that more than myself. So they don't have, there's not much of an argument for them to make on sloughing around the office.
So you said there's 3 to 4 police officers on a shift. You would like 7 on yours.
I would like 5.
Is there a reason yours is so low? Okay.
No, there's not. But if you look at the total numbers, it's 21-ish, plus command staff.
Yeah.
We have more than that. We have 3 shifts there, but we also have a few detectives. We have command staff. We have our training officer. So 3 was what our minimal staffing levels have been, and since the history of, I don't remember it ever being lower. We work with 2 often. When there's 3 on and one has to transport or take an emergency detention to somewhere across town, it's only 2 on.
Typically, police operate alone versus firemen.
Or together, I get that.
Exactly.
I'm just saying,
Together as a
would you
team.
like more than 3? What you like?
I mean, yeah, so.
What makes you feel good?
So oftentimes, Denise, to more accurately answer your question, it's usually, if it's certain daylight hours, myself, I'm here, CID's here, we have the extra coverage, it's here. On the road is typically 3 to 4 officers every night, and our sergeants are very good at this, and they know that I'll quiz them and pop in from time to time. I was in here Sunday and I was in here yesterday. That's not required, I'm an exempt employee as well, but I feel compelled to pop in here, make breakfast for our team from time to time, and let them know that I could walk in any minute. You better not be in here jacking around and not bringing our citizens value. But our sergeants know that too, and so they're very pointed at 2 in, 2 out if there's 4 on. Somebody stays on the road. So there's always an officer that's ready to respond from a mobile position to streamline response times.
All right, do you have a number, like other cities have a ratio of how many police officers to residents? Do you have one of those numbers, like 1.8 police officers
It's funny
to 1,000?
it's funny that you asked that, because I did my certified public manager 2-year designation. I graduated last May through Texas State University on that CM Turner has kind of started for our city, and that I had started before I got here, but I was fortunate to have a city manager that encouraged me to see it through to fruition. And I did my what do you call your end thing? Your
Dissertation.
Your practicum, thank you. You said, yes, so one of the same. Your final project, I did it on just that, staffing levels.
Okay.
And here's what I found after doing tons of research. There is no one exact model. It's what your citizens' expectations are. The FBI estimates 1 per 1,000, right? That puts us at about 22 cops. I'm telling you, we couldn't police that way.
Yeah.
We absolutely couldn't do it. Our response times would go to 10 and 15, 20, 30 minutes probably, and calls would be, arrests and things would be getting dropped, dismissed at a more alarming rate because we couldn't meet the requirements on the timelines. So that is not practical for a city our size with the citizen expectations that we have. It's loosely based on, here's what my premise was. People move to suburbs because they'll say this. When I call for a cop or a police officer, a firefighter or a police officer, one comes to my door, one shows up. Operating under that premise is what are our tolerations, right? Some folks are okay with San Antonio's 12, 15, 40, 50-minute response time. The 12 and 15 was an emergency response time. The other ones are your average response times on a non-emergency call. I know that we're not okay with that. So yeah, we try to push for sub 5-minute response times and keep us well ahead of the norm and the average, because our citizens deserve above average.
I'm almost done, sorry. Do you have, a lot of the residents they're concerned about, I got a slew of emails, concerned about the increased amount of homeless in our area. I know we've lightly talked about it before. Do you have a plan for this? Are you guys concerned about this? Like, obviously it's a nationwide problem, but it does seem like it's coming home, reaching home, and I think that concerns, like you said, people who expect short time calls. We're a little bit more sensitive to it when there's only 2 or 3 as opposed to other places that are okay with 15, 20.
So,
where are you landing?
Very loaded question, and I'll start with this. Austin's done us no favors.
Yeah.
No favors, right? Because it's a mecca, and it's only 50 miles up the roadway, so that mecca broadens and gets further and further, and then we become the extended mecca for homelessness. Because of their loose and they just passed a city ordinance last year that they said was tough on homelessness and transient. It's ridiculous. If you get a chance, read it. It does literally nothing. It gives no teeth to the officer to do anything. It's horrible, Councilman, but I'll tell you this. Our homelessness right now is at an all-time low, because I just reached out to a personal friend whose daddy lives here, Sheriff Javier Salazar, and said, you got a camp down here on Mecca Drive? Thank you. Aztec Drive, I know my streets here, I brought it. Aztec Drive, it's not even our street, it's Fair County's. But we noticed the tent city down there, there was about 60 tents. Wasn't in our city, but they were coming into our city in shirts and flying signs. I said, come clean up your stuff, please, buddy. Your daddy's tired of seeing it, so am I. And I'm sure he did it for his dad. No, he did. He did it because that same weekend, he called me, and I happened to be up here, and I'd been down there, and I saw their trucks down there. They moved that camp gone. We've never been at a more lower time. That does not mean that they're not here. We still have our fair share, but we're at an all-time low. And so we're constantly keeping our finger on the temperature, on the pulse of that thing. We are looking at some ordinance stuff that Leon Valley has just passed, so I'm waiting to get that from Chief Gonzalez over there to take a look at that. They had some stuff about camping and hanging out on sidewalks that I thought was pretty creative, and it's something that we can incorporate. So we're always looking to be, one, they're a demand on our resources, right? Because they're often our emergency detainees, drug abuse. You know, they destroy the parks and the stuff that Public Works has to go in there and fix all the time in the bathrooms and sleep in the bathrooms. And so it's a nuisance, certainly is. In the library, they're over there with some regularity, but it's at an all-time low.
I have one more question for you and one for the police, and then I'm done, sorry. Okay, your response time, you said 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Is it taking you longer to get to certain areas like Orchard Park now that we've expanded? Are those calls taking more than that 5 minutes? Are we looking at more? I know shirts and them are coming too, but I'm just wondering, like, is that an issue yet?
No, it's not yet because the call volume hasn't been enough to statistically change we get enough elsewhere that we're still responding quite fast. And our officers are over there with some regularity. It's not on an island. We go over there, we're over there with some regularity.
I pulled the numbers on that too, and ours is a 6-minute response time.
Yeah, that's a fantastic
That's coming down
response.
UC Boulevard, hitting the highway,
Right,
going
the
out
long
to
way around.
1518. It is the long way around.
But
And we're
remember,
getting
we are in the process, we do have that.
Of the road. Yeah, I was just curious for now. My last question is for fire, and it was a resident asked me to ask you. So what does our ISO rating require for staffing?
For staffing, so I would have to actually look at what that number is, and I'm not really sure. I don't think it identifies staffing.
Okay.
So what our ISO rating is we're an ISO of 2. And basically that rating is, I think it's comprised of dispatch times and our hydrant locations and our equipment that we have on hand, which is our primary.
The apparatus.
If we wanted a better rating, would you need more staffing?
No, I don't think that our staffing is involved in that.
Okay.
I think it's our response and mutual aid and all those other things factor in to that number. And we've addressed the ISO rating of 2 versus.
An ISO rating is not solely on fire, you have to understand.
Okay.
Water system.
It's our water system, it's our dispatch capability.
Our co-compliance, how many co-compliance officers, how many building
Okay, so
officials,
it's
how
not
many
just-
inspectors, it's more encompassing than just.
Our staffing really relies on NFPA and what that national standard is. And that is, obviously, the NFPA states that for every 2 firemen that are inside the home, we have to have 2 firefighters outside, ready, in gear, breathing air, to go in and perform that rescue.
Thank you both for your time, sorry.
Real quick, 11 years as an administrator, now 20 plus as a police officer, but 11 as an administrator. And I've had 8 city managers in that time frame. And I want to tell you from the top down, this place is as good as it gets. I've seen the other agencies inside and out, and it's not lip service, that's a fact. We have some of the best team members and folks here that work towards a common goal, and that's citizenry, first and foremost.
Your council's pretty cool too.
Hey, council's okay.
I urge you guys to come out. Christina was fortunate enough to see the group of guys that we have here, and they're all in. And I've never worked with a better and more amazing group of people than this right here.
I'll make the pitch for Public Safety Week, which is our opening day for the pumpkin patch. If you really want to see.
Right before National Night Out.
If you really want to see your police and fire reaching out and being interactive with the community, that's the place to see it.
Listen, we're an open book. Just clear it with City Manager Turner, and by all means, if you want to visit, we're happy to do it.
I would also recommend, since we're pitching events too, which also plays into a lot of things in our community, that it's not unusual to see some of our newer police and fire people doing patrol during the movie night. They're not there to make anyone safe. They're there just to be seen in the community and to touch base with the kids and the adults that are there, because we want them to see us as their friends, not as their enemies.
Thank you. I hope we answered all y'all's.
Fantastic presentation, guys. You're not too enthusiastic about what you do, are you?
Yeah, I'm high on Mary, there's no doubt about it. I love what we do. You don't work a day in your life if you like what you do. I was an IT analyst right before 9/11. You've heard my story, but for those of you that haven't, I'll keep it real brief. I know you're waiting, Randy.
I don't know why.
9/11 came around. I was an IT analyst at USAA. It was my bride's birthday. Instead of taking her out and celebrating, we cried like everybody else. And I turned to her and said, I'm going back in the military, civilian law enforcement, what's it going to be? She told me as usual, like she still does, what I'm going to do. And I joined the police academy. I went from $80,000 a year to $29,000 a year right here in 2002, and I haven't looked back. I make a little bit more than that now, thank God. I wasn't making ends meet then, but when you like what you do and you don't work a day in your life.
That's absolutely true.
One last quick comment. As I said in my invocation, God bless both of you and your team and everything that you guys are doing. So thank you very much for the services you're providing to this community. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all yours.
Yeah, and thank you for what you do.
Great presentation.
We'll see both at budget time.
All right.
Now
Tab 5.
Randy has to compete.
Tab 5, Kitty Hawk Thoroughfare status presentation.
Yeah. Apologies to Stephen and Nolan. Wow, I put it at the end of the presentation, sorry about that. So as we've been talking about a lot of projects going on in the city, and one of them is the Kitty Hawk Thoroughfare plan. We've made mention of it when we've been talking about our reunion project, and that there was a lot of work that was being done on that. And so what I asked them to do to come this evening and actually talk a little bit more about where we are in that project and the things that we've completed and where we're at. And then also want to discuss the preliminary probable estimated cost of construction. I don't know why we call that. So that council has an idea of, what our obligations are in terms of providing for that area in terms of not just traffic flow, but economic development as well. So we'll let Stephen take it from there.
Thanks for sticking around, guys.
No problem. Good evening, Councilmembers. Like Kim mentioned, my name is Stephen Daniel. We work with Kim and Horn, and a couple of years ago, Randy reached out to us to start looking at this particular property because Kim and Horn was the engineer that worked with Walmart to bring the Walmart in back about 10 years ago. And so since then, Nolan Pierce has joined my team, and he's been instrumental in helping coordinate the layout, some of the design, specifically the roundabout that we'll kind of get into. So wanted to both get up here and speak through it and again, answer any questions y'all might have. So just real quick agenda. I think most everybody knows the location, but we'll just quickly show a screenshot on that. Get into some of the background history, what we looked at in terms of the conceptual planning early on, and as we've gotten into the design of the actual thoroughfare near Kitty Hawk, dive into the proposed improvements, progress to date, cost, as Kim mentioned, for the Kitty Hawk component that ties into Kitty Hawk, and then again some questions that y'all might have at the end. Location, just down the road from here, squeezed in between the Walmart and St. Matthew's Church. I know this is kind of hard to see. We've got some more graphics that we'll show later in the slide, but the component that we're referring to, Kitty Hawk, the Kitty Hawk Thoroughfare, ties into Kitty Hawk and extends about 1,000 feet to the south. So mentioned some of the history that we've had. First step we did with looking at a planning stage when Randy reached out was understanding that this land was potentially developable. We ran a few scenarios for different development options and develop traffic projections to first and foremost determine, depending on what may or may not come in, determine the size of the roadway that would need to be put in. So more or less a capacity study. And that would help develop what we would call a typical section, how many lanes we have, the bike lane and sidewalks and so forth, and what our ultimate right-of-way footprint would be. And so again, we completed the traffic study, came up with a few different options, and each one of those options yielded the same section. What we're showing is it's 2 lanes, one lane in each direction, a center turn lane with bike lanes and then sidewalks as well. I've got in here, again, I know this is a little tight to see. We do obviously have proposed a roundabout there in the center where we meet up with the Walmart driveway. Initially, that was not necessarily the plan to develop that roundabout. We were going to do more of an S-curve through there that ties into Kitty Hawk. But in doing so, that would have impacted the conservation easement that's for a stream that parallels the Walmart property. prior to that Walmart being installed, that stream ran through that parcel. The agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers when they relocated that stream was it had to be put into a conservation easement. And so as we started, when we started doing the conceptual roadway layouts, the alignment, the required curvature that we would need based on the speed of the vehicles, and we were working hand in hand with the project manager from the Corps, and then sat down, showed them what we had, and then after going into depth a little bit, they basically kind of shot us down and said, you can't touch that easement, it's more or less in perpetuity. So from there, we kind of had to take a step back and look at, okay, how do we want to make this work? Because one of the big goals of that project is that parcel that's up closest to Kitty Hawk, between the church and Walmart, we wanted to maintain a certain size parcel so it can still be developable. And so one of the thoughts that we brought to them was the roundabout. It reduces speed. I know there's not one currently in the city, so there's obviously the confusion part of it, but one of the big the benefits of it does serve as a traffic calming effect. We're able to slow speeds into it, and so as we worked through it, that was kind of the concept behind bringing that curve in, and so. So again, the overall exhibit, what you see is the green is the developable area that the city's coordinating with, and then there's a footprint for that conceptual layout. And I mentioned, and I apologize if it's kind of hard to see, but the thoroughfare starts at Kitty Hawk, and of course you see the network through there. The design project that we'll get into the cost a little bit later. So it's about 1,000 feet from Kitty Hawk. And then the rest of it, that's conceptual level some of the alignment could change based on what the developer proposes to the city. And so, and again, those connections hit 1604, Universal City Boulevard, and then Burke Boulevard as well. And then lastly, with some of the history, we've been coordinating back and forth with Walmart, and we do have a close-up of the impacts. We are with the roundabout being installed, we are impacting 13 of their parking spaces. And when they coordinated their design with the city during the plat approval process, they read the minimum number of parking spaces per square foot. So one of the, I wouldn't say necessarily requirements, but one of the things that they asked us for was we want to maintain that minimum. So if you're impacting 13 spaces, we'd like to see 13 spaces go back in. So right now, again, we actually had a very good meeting with them last week to talk about it. They're on board with it. They obviously recognize the benefit to the store with the development that is looking to go in. And so, but again, that process is ongoing. And the next step with them is to start talking about easement ownership as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Nolan to talk about some of the improvements.
Yeah, and so there's some zoomed in images here, kind of talk about some of the components. So this is that first 1,000 feet that Stephen was talking about. The orientation is down a little bit, so you can see it a little better. But we're looking to connect to Kitty Hawk, where there's an existing entrance that connects to the Walmart, and converting, widen that section to reduce turn lanes. Obviously the roundabout intersection there, and then as it turns to the south, future layout there, that will be expanded with the development. So part of these improvements include new asphalt pavement with concrete curb and gutter. We're going to be introducing an internal storm drain system to pick up the runoff for off-side drainage and of course the roadway itself. We're going to include sidewalks with ADA ramps around the roundabout, and that connects with Kitty Hawk and the future development. As part of this, because we are introducing turn lanes at the intersection of Kitty Hawk, we've got to modify that signal. We've got to move a couple of signal poles and put new mast arms and new equipment to make that intersection work. And then also, because we're up against this conservation event, like Stephen mentioned, we've got some constraints with how the grading works and how we can put the footprint and the actual layout of the roadway in. So we're going to have a very large retaining wall to hold up the roadway, and those components also include railing and things like that for pedestrians walking through there. Also, signing pavement markings. It's really important for a roundabout to have clear and concise signage to help with folks, especially if it's new to them, and that's always a learning curve for new people with roundabouts, because sometimes it can be a little daunting, but with research and things that we've done in other communities, we've got a good plan for that. And then also some illumination, so street lighting. That's also important at a roundabout, being able to see around the circulating lanes. And then also, you continue as well down the corridor. And then we're looking at landscape and irrigation for the center of the roundabout. So there's a kind of the red shading is like a truck apron for larger trucks to be able to move through the intersection and not block. But there's an opportunity for the very middle of the roundabout, if you've ever seen one of the communities where we can do some nice street landscaping and do some irrigation for that as well. As part of the project, we also have some improvements to make along Kitty Hawk. So we're doing some alterations to the raised median. So this is between the existing signal where we're connecting Kitty Hawk to University Boulevard. So because of the new roadway coming in, we're going to need more capacity at that intersection. So we need to expand that left turn lane and also reconfiguring and closing off some of the openings to allow for that room for those turn lanes for the traffic signal and traffic to be efficient. And then also you get some increased safety with controlling access anytime you eliminate, turning movements and conflicts. And then here's a zoomed in view of the bottom left corner of some turning movements and how we're going to have to reconfigure the Walmart parking lot. So we're making sure that turning movements vehicles can get in and out of that parking lot with a revised drive aisle. And like Stephen mentioned, that's 13 spots that are impacted there. And we're working closely with them on converting that right of way, making sure we have the space during construction to do those improvements. And then the bigger zoomed out view, maybe hard to see, but we're looking to add those parking spots on the Universal Boulevard side of Walmart's parking lot. So adding those parking spots in those corners. And then also a part of this, we're looking at utilities. There's a sanitary sewer 12-inch, existing line there that we're upgrading to a 12-inch. It's a separate project that Randy may have already brought to y'all or discussed, but it does go through our improvements. So we're keeping those improvements in mind as we design our storm drain and other elements of the roadway. And then included in our project as well when we're doing the new roadway design and installing that, we're also including water line improvements as well. So those can come in at the same time. You don't have to work with the roadway after the fact.
Right, and that's, like, that was one of the things we talked about last time. I said, the utility coordination, that now that there's going to be developments in not only but water and sewer, but we also want to engage, if there's gas, if there's communications, we want that to happen now and set aside space for it now. So as Nolan mentioned, they don't come in after the fact and rip up brand new pavement. So that's part of one of the tasks that's ongoing right now. So, and then again, as some of the other lakes that we develop, coordination between the city and the developer in terms of who provides that, that'll be ongoing. So again, progress to date, we did the planning stage. Again, this has been going on a couple years thus far. I mentioned the working with the Army Corps of Engineers. We went down an area, an alignment with them that we thought was, talking to one of their project managers was reasonable and legitimate, and they I wouldn't say threw us a curveball, but they basically said we can't touch this. So again, that was probably a little bit of a delay, but again, completed the planning stage in 21. Started doing the data collection last year. We had a conceptual design submittal, like what we would call 30%. It's all of your pretty line work with limited vertical design to kind of show, yes, this is what it looks like, this works. And then from there, we did take a little bit of break because at that point the city had, I believe, put up the RFP with the developer, and we wanted to, some of those items needed to transpire, so we didn't get too far down the rabbit hole, and the developer tried, wanted to change something that was more beneficial to their site, and then we ended up having to go redesign a bunch of stuff. So
he's talking about the reunion project when we put the RFP out for that.
Right. So, and then again, develop, but we still continue that development. We still kept in touch with Walmart. That was, that has been a little bit of a challenge today. They're on board with it. but, you know, it has been taking time to get them on the phone. But again, the last meeting we had with them this past week was very positive. And so we are looking forward to that. And then again, we started the sanitary sewer, the component where part of it's a rehabilitation, and then as we also have to bore underneath 1604 to put in it's can't do a rehabilitation under their roadway, so we're actually relocating that component. So that started in the spring of this year, and those projects they're intertwined, but the timelines are more or less running simultaneously. So here's the one on in terms of cost. So we broke this down. So this is the component for the Kitty Hawk Thoroughfare, right? The more or less 1,000 feet stretch, and we broke this down to kind of outline what what each item is. So roadway and drainage, signal modification, the retaining wall. That retaining wall item is something that on this type of project we typically don't. Is a cost that we typically don't have, but because of the grading challenge that we have at that easement, we are having to design a retaining wall that is going to retain a decent amount of soil. So again, that is an added cost. The water line that's in there, again, that's to feed the ultimate development that will become a component of the system that Randy operates. Illumination, the lighting. Landscaping and irrigation, we have a relatively small amount, and then we do have a 30% contingency added in there just because of unknowns. Again, with this being still tied to development, we want to make sure that we try to provide a bigger picture number to where we don't exceed that. So again, of course, all that rolls up to right around that 4.1. So, but again, this is for the section that ties into Kitty Hawk, the median improvements as well, the access improvements, and then again, the individual items that we point out. So that's it. That's what we happy to.
Okay, we'll open up for questions.
First off, your 30% contingency, is that typical on a roadway project?
It is at this stage, and so industry standard, we used to kind of pull that back maybe a little bit. So conceptual level stage was 30%, and we did develop 30% plans, so we usually drop that down to 25 or 20, depending on the comfortableness that we have. With the higher inflation costs and kind of the unknowns, we want to kind of maybe set expectations a little bit better with budget, and so we're still kind of at 30%. Right. But when we move to the next stage at 70% design, that will start to drop that down. Correct. And we're getting closer to construction.
Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna, anyway, it's late. On Kitty Hawk, you're closing off access to the other side of the line, basically the funeral home and the church right there. It looks like you're shutting down the majority of the access to points that are across.
Yes, they have that opening there. I apologize, it might be hard to see, but we are introducing a hooded left turn lane, which is in the middle, right in the middle of that median improvement. So they will still have access into the funeral home. I know that, with processions and things that happen, thank you. The exit is an important component of that, but they usually have traffic control and things like that, and they can U-turn at the intersection.
And the funeral processions, by the way, always go out towards 1604. They don't pass through the city.
And they also have the intersection light to go through the multi-use agreement that they have with the church.
Let's see, can you get any breaks?
Yeah, you can still get in, but you're only getting in through the light.
But you can't get in where we used to be able to get in?
Yeah, from this side, so, and from up here, you can't get out and head this way. You're gonna have to go down to the light and go out and go that way.
But like Randy said, they have a joint use agreement with the church where they can still use that parking lot to get to the signal and go left.
Okay, that's a bummer. That's the way I always go.
And left, you won't be able to go left on Quail anymore?
Correct.
Is that the only street that's going to be impacted with no left, or is there another street?
Quell, to make a left turn on the Quell will be closed.
Okay.
They'll go up to the next intersection, which is Drive, Kitty Hawk Road, that Quail is really close.
Oh, absolutely.
To City Boulevard. And if you're going to turn to go left on Quail, you're actually really behind people who are waiting to turn left on UC Boulevard. And since the Quail Street goes through UC Boulevard and then you turn left and then you're back on Quail anyway, so yeah, it won't have much of an impact on their traffic.
So what I'm gonna really ask y'all for is the backup on the safety for the requirements of that, of shutting down the left turns out of the, basically out of the funeral home parking lot. I'm gonna ask you to really give me the backup on that, because I've got about 380 people that are gonna be upset. So I just need to
You
get
know, 380 people at the funeral home?
at the church.
At the church, yeah. It's church that's affected.
The church there is affected.
So a big part of it too is, you know, the capacity for that left turn lane onto the new thoroughfare. So part of it is if you leave that opening, you know, you're gonna be conflicting with the queuing. So people at that signal will queue into the through lane and they won't be able to get out anyhow.
I get it, I just need you to prove it.
Sure,
You know?
What are you worried about the church making the left turn out of there? Because that's the only way they can get out of there to turn left.
You can turn left at the light or you can turn left at the funeral home.
Most of us
Right.
use the funeral home because it's faster than waiting at the light, and at the church, there's not enough parking to line up. Like, if that parking lot is really small, so it's a really weird, so if you're at the light, it's super awkward, like, you can't line up cars that way. So a lot of us go to the church parking lot and take left out and then head home, as opposed to using the light, because it just logically makes more sense, because you can't line up in that parking, there's not enough room in that parking lot, the way it's designed to line people up to get out, it's just not feasible.
There, I guess I'm not following you because you're talking about when you're leaving the funeral home.
Well, this one right here.
Yes.
When you leave this, a lot of people, when they leave, they go out and go down.
Gotcha.
This way.
That little opening.
And I get it, what he's saying is I need the stacking depth because of the traffic that's here.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you what the issues are with the people at the church.
No, but we can certainly, and that's, you know, determining the length of that was, you know, that came from the queuing length, right, the stacking length, so that we had. I mean, we did, I know, we looked at this quite a bit, maybe, you know, like, we do provide that, what we call a hooded left for the next driveway, so they can at least turn in, but that's, like you said, the left turn access now would have to go when you see that little traffic light there.
Okay, because it does get very congested in that church parking lot, trying to hit that one light to turn left. Because the majority of, a huge amount of people live on this side of the church.
And then once we put in the full thoroughfare where it connects to the access road on 1604 and UC Boulevard, that is going to be another busy intersection as well. Coming to that light.
I would just be curious
And part of the design, you know, with the signal modification, we look at phasing and timing and things like that. So if there's a big demand in Sunday mornings, Wednesday evenings, certain times, that's something that can be programmed and looked at in engineering side.
Ah, jeez, that's what Randy's lights. He just got a program with TxDOT. Now we got to do it with the church too. Okay, I'm telling you my woes. And letting you know that if you can think of an ingenious engineering solution, I would love to hear about it. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Vaughan?
Yes, sir. Very brief, can you tell us again how far that 4.1 million goes? Like, how far into the development do we get for that? Is it just to Walmart, or does it?
Right.
Everything you see on the screen. So
Okay, so all the way down
south,
to-
it's about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
That does also, the Walmart component's not significant, but it also includes the relocating.
Replacing the parking lots.
Replacing the parking spaces as well. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item for us this evening is we're going to go into a closed session. It's pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551L72 regarding the purchase and value of real property, deliberation in open session with application rental effect on the position of the corporation in negotiations with a third party and for attorney consultation pursuant to 551L71-2 regarding property between 500 and 800 blocks of Kitty Hawk Road. So we'll go ahead and break off now into our closed session as we possibly can.
Oh, yeah, wait, is this the one where I can't bring these from?
Right. Well, you can, most things, sure, you just can't take anything else.
Okay, well, let's not be that. I need notes. All right, fine. I guess I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah? You like it?
Well, I didn't get to say hello to you.
No,
Yeah.
I
can't believe you ladies are still here.
Well, we did, you know, we've been here this long.
I know, I'm like, yeah, what is this like?
I see an empty room.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm sorry.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody.
Yeah.
Now we don't want
Bless your heart, that's sweet.
Okay, we were talking about
Cars? No,
Good roundabout.
I'm not southern, I'm from Michigan, I can say it.
Okay. It's now 10:11, and we'll come back to closed session, and there will be no action taken as a result of the executive session. Closed session. So move on now then to number F, which is to consider the reappointment to the University City Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors to fill the 2022-2024 unexpired term. Kristen?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, let me gather my things.
That's okay, no problem.
That's page 2.
It's gone anyways. Long story short, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Neville was not reelected to City Council per our Articles of Incorporation. That means he automatically ceases to be a director for the EDC, and that position became vacant. Councilmember Goolsby and Councilmember Fitzpatrick also serve on the EDC. Our bylaws allow up to 4 council members to serve. Because Mr. Neville's seat had a vacancy, they did make recommendation at their last EDC meeting to go ahead and reappoint him for his unexpired term. So his term will expire at the same time all the other board members do in 2024. And they also agreed to keep him on as treasurer. That is a recommendation from EDC, but that decision would have to be ratified by council ultimately.
Okay.
Second.
Councilmember Vaughan, second by Councilmember Bulman. Bulman. It's late,
It
gang.
is late.
It is late. And any other discussion, anybody? All right, good. Then call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good. Very good. That concludes our business session today. So, City Manager, you got some comments, ma'am?
No, sir, I don't, thank you.
All right, let's start with Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attended the Splash Fest on Saturday. It was a success. Had a great time. Thank you to Regina and the entire staff that put that together. Randy and your guys out there are spectacular. I asked tonight for support from 3 of my fellow council members in adding an item to the agenda for the next city council meeting. I've spoken about it several times, and it's the venue tax reallocation. To be clear, I separate the golf course from the venue tax. I love the golf course, I attend the events, sponsor them, want them to be successful. However, back in 2002, when the residents of Universal City were asked to approve the designation of a 1/4% sales tax, sorry, a 1/2 cent of sales tax to go towards the venue, it was specifically marketed as being designed to repay the bonds that were issued to fund the creation of the golf course and event center. It did contain language that it is to repay those bonds as well as fund the operations of the golf course. However, the primary purpose of designation of that venue tax was initially to repay the bonds. So now, 2023, we've made the final defeasing payment on those bonds, correct? So before we continue to use that 1/2 cent sales tax as a venue tax, the original designation having fulfilled its original purpose, I would like to ask the residents on the November 2023 ballot for their permission to reallocate some or all of that venue tax to something else. I understand that this may be a difficult concept or a difficult idea for some to support, and I understand that. If we vote on this at a coming city council meeting and it's voted down, I will not be hurt by this, okay? But I want to have the discussion. I want to have the discussion, and I would like to have a vote on whether or not city council will ask the residents of Universal City to redesignate a portion of that tax to something else. So I would ask at this point for at least three of my fellow council members to join me in supporting having that discussion and then voting on whether to add it to the agenda for the next city council meeting.
All right, you want a discussion?
I want a discussion and a vote. I want this to be binding, to make a decision on whether to add it to the ballot in November of 2023, requesting permission from the residents to reallocate some or all of the venue tax to something else, to be decided by city council. That ballot language will be decided. How are we going to reallocate it? And then giving direction to the city manager and her staff to draft that language and notify Bear County that we wish to put that it should be placed on the ballot for November of 2023.
Okay. Okay. Well, no, this is not a discussion.
It's not a discussion, right?
To get consensus
I just want to get this added to the agenda so that we can discuss it and take a vote on it. And if it's a 4-2, 5-1, whatever it turns out to be, so be it. I just want to have the vote and be able to discuss it. Can I have the support from three of my council members?
I'd like some clarification. I need clarification.
Okay.
And it only, before I vote to do that, I need a clarification on the fact that were we already in the process of having workshops on this, that scheduled more workshops before that? Was that still going? And so my question to you would be, you're asking to forego any of that and just jump forward with that?
No, sir. What I'm asking for is that about approximately 8 weeks ago, we had a workshop. We've just been discussing this since at least February, when we got the notification that the final defeasing payment was going to be made for those bonds. We've requested it, and the city manager has told me that she's getting some conflicting guidance. She needs some specific guidance. I asked her what we're waiting for, and she told me that she's waiting for guidance from the city council.
So again, I bring it up. You're asking to forego what we had been discussing about having some more workshops and getting together with some more ideas on this? Or are you asking to forego those discussions and move on with this process?
Go ahead.
No.
What I'm trying to do is get this done before the budget season comes up. The deadline to notify Bear County of our intent to place this on the ballot is August 28th, August 21st. We're about to get right into budget season where we're already going to have a lot of long meetings, a lot of long discussions, crunching numbers, stuff like that. I would like to try to, and if August 21st is right in the heat of that in terms of trying to discuss the budget, and when I've asked, I've not gotten a clear answer on what the status is of this, and Ms. Turner has told me that she's waiting on guidance from City Council.
Well, I'm not getting a clear answer right now either, as far as the fact that, again, you're asking, what you're asking is to forego what we were talking about, doing some workshops and bringing this right to, bringing this up for basically vote, not just a discussion item at this point.
Are you trying to say you need more information? Like before you could vote, you're saying you would need more discussion about the golf course
I
before
want
you
to know
could vote?
if he's asking to forego the workshops we were talking about having on this particular issue.
He doesn't feel like he has enough information.
Are there any workshops currently scheduled regarding reallocation of the venue tax? There are none, Paul.
We have been talking about having workshops.
You're right.
So I would be, I'll make mine, I'm in favor of scheduling a workshop and getting down and dirty with the issue, and let's get it out there and work on it so we can make sure we make the timeline. but I personally would not be ready to put that out for.
Here's what I think the disconnect is when we had that workshop, one council person had an idea of what to do, another one had another thought, but it was never a consensus of everybody that this is. So I think what Ms. Turner is saying is even council was not united on totally on what they want.
Correct.
Okay.
So I wish to make a decision one way or the other. That's why I seek input and support from 3 of my fellow council members to add this definitively to the agenda. Barring any one of us, I believe, adding it to a future agenda, it will not get added to a future agenda.
I would like to add basically a workshop to know what we want to put on the agenda as far as what to vote on. Because I think the idea of leaving it, we're going to vote on something, well, Ms. Turner's got to put something down, but she doesn't know what. So we need to give her guidance as to what we want to see on that. So I think we do need one more meeting so that we can give her guidance. So then, within another meeting or two, she can have that together.
Then I request for 2 items to be added to 2 future agendas. At the next city council member, the discussion of how city council would like to potentially have the venue tax reallocated to something else. The immediately thereafter following council meeting to have the vote on that item that we decided upon during the workshop.
I guess I'm going to throw it out there that I didn't feel like we necessarily had exhausted that it should be reallocated as of yet because there was still debt to the city that needed to come back from the golf course that they had loaned the interdepartmental, I forget the terminology that the lawyer used, but that was something that needed to be paid back. And so as part of the discussion that we have on that, I think we should have a plan on how that is going to be accomplished so it doesn't impact our bond rating and all of those other things going forward. So I'm not ready to vote on the reallocation yet. I think we still need to talk about what is the timeline of it. Does it need to go on this November, or would we be more judicious in holding it back for another year to make another payment towards that and then putting on the ballot? I know you're managing towards that August 21st date, but I don't want to rush the decision and regret it later.
So then I offer to all of you that you can vote no.
All right, so
if you don't feel comfortable voting yes to place it on the ballot in November, that's okay. I said that was okay.
Yeah, you did. And I just think it's premature to have, I think we need to have other discussions before we come to the vote. So maybe I would support having the discussion at a council meeting.
And not discussion not leading to action.
Correct.
Very well then.
Potential action down the road, but just discussion.
Very well then.
That was my point.
Okay, then very well. Knowing that I will then request the support that if we do this in 2 weeks, whatever it is, I think our next one is the 5th of July. I want to have the discussion about reallocation of the venue tax. Then at the immediately thereafter following city council meeting, that we will put it up for a vote.
I think when you're having the discussion, that would have to be something that came out of the discussion.
Because you put it up for immediate, because I can't tell you that staff is going to have, that 2 weeks is going to give staff plenty of time to put together what we're going to ask of them. You're putting a binding date on it within one of the subsequent X numbers. I think will get you a lot farther.
At a council meeting prior to the deadline of notification to Bear County, that we will hold a vote.
I can recommend that.
Okay. So,
and that would be if there's a determination that we want to go forward with it.
Very well. So, at the next city council meeting, that we will have a discussion about reallocation of the venue tax.
If that timeline
that's just putting it as an agenda, absolutely.
Very well. knowing then that I will ask for your support at that meeting or at a future meeting to place it on, to then call for a vote. Very well.
But not at the discussion meeting.
Not at the discussion meeting. I understand your discomfort. I understand your discomfort. I'm willing to negotiate on this. No, what I mean is I'm not going to say either you support me or you don't support me. Okay? I'm certainly willing to negotiate on this, but I want to make sure that there is forward progress on this towards having the discussion and then having a vote at a council meeting that will meet and convene with sufficient time to provide the requisite notification to Bear County of placing it on the ballot if we so decide.
With four parties.
You're not asking for future commitment from this council?
I'm not.
Okay.
No, I am not.
We're not, no future commitment is
No future
being
commitment.
made here.
No
He's just
future- no
asking for
future
it on
commitment.
the agenda.
Yes, so
There you go.
Okay.
Got it.
at this point, a discussion at the next city council meeting.
So all you get your ducks in a row, so we know what to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir.
Bear?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
All right, so a lady came up and spoke today about the weeds at Capano Ridge. She also sent an email out to all of you. I drove out there personally, and like they are like literally up chest high. I realized that we don't have, she's tried to work with him. She's tried to contact him. She's given him a price. She said, we'll mow it. Will you help pay part of the price? They were even willing to negotiate. The land developer is not interested at all in working with her. So she's asking council to help her out. And so my question is can we have an agenda item regarding the ordinance that talks about those weeds and how long that unincorporated or whatever, I know we have rules that it can be whatever it wants to be, but is it something that we can actually look at and decide as a council that maybe it needs to be at 2 feet, not 5 feet, because that does seem a bit ridiculous, and they're very amenable to having it at, you know, even if it's a foot high or 2 feet high, but like it's literally 5 feet, like I'm 5'6" and it's up to here on me. So is there a way that we could possibly put that on the agenda to discuss that ordinance and possibly work with this?
Thank you for bringing it up. I wish Mr. and Mrs. Thompson had stayed. So when I sent the information back out to all of you with the agreements on it, I also carbon copied the owner of that property because his name and phone number were within those documents, and I anticipated that he was going to be getting a call. So I did get an email back from him. It says, Kim, thank you for this information. I'd like to respond to Ms. Thomas's comments below. Last October 7th at 11 a.m., I met Ms. Thompson at the property. We discussed the situation. It was acknowledged that I was violating no city codes and that the HOA had the responsibility for maintaining a 25-foot strip adjacent to the subdivision. However, in the spirit of cooperation, I asked Ms. Thomas to find out from the HOA landscape contractor how much it would cost to mow my lots when he was already on site to mow the drainage and landscape areas currently maintained by the HOA. Ms. Thompson said she would get back to me with the information, but I've never heard back from her. I have not been contacted by her since that meeting. Last year, prior to the meeting, as a courtesy and at my expense, I did mow the 2.5-acre lot at the corner of Kitty Hawk and Old Cimarron Trail, including the 25-foot HOA strip. I have not mowed the other lots. Thank you, Mr. Calvin. So I'm wondering if there is a disconnect between the two property owners.
Yeah, because that's not what she told me tonight. She said she did contact him. She got like 3 bids. She sent them over to him, and he said that they should have to pay for all of them, is what she said to me. I don't know, like.
That was the initial, I was there for those. That was the initial discussion last year.
Okay.
HOA, and she was the new HOA president. They didn't understand that the HOA is the one that's required to maintain a 20-foot landscaping between the subdivision and his. And she thought it was his responsibility. Once we identified with her by plat and by the covenants for that subdivision, then she went out as the HOA president and got 3 bids for the HOA. He had asked that when she selected the company, if he could get a bid for his property too. So that's the part that didn't happen. So she did take care of the HOA. I just don't think she's gotten back with Mr. Keller. I mean, I'll reach out to her again. Michael's not here, he left. Michael was the one that actually put her with Mr. Calvert last year. We felt that they had an understanding. Actually, I think the mayor even met with them also. I felt like they had an understanding of what each one of them were going to do, and I'm not quite too sure why they drug the city back into their little private consideration that they have. I understand that the grass gets high, but it's not like a residential lot where it's, 10 or 12 inches or below. City Council last year was the one that passed the ordinance that said on sites that are 2 acres or above, it's at the discretion of the fire marshal on whether or not the lot needs to be cut and if it is a fire danger. I understand that she thinks it looks ugly, but you have to remember that the people that are in the Rifleman subdivision, where the Copano is now, they saw that empty lot at the same height for 20-some years. Some of them, their entire 40 years or 50 years they've lived out there. So I understand that she thinks it looks unsightly. But we do have large swaths of land that do have the fire burn around them, and the property owners are maintaining them that. But they're not going to come in all the time and mow a 20-acre lot like you would your 6,000 or 12,000 square foot residential lot. I really believe the disconnect is between Ms. Thomas and Mr. Calvert.
Okay, well, I'll get back to her and I'll see.
Get back to her tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just, like I said, that's not what she said tonight, so if that's.
I understand.
So I'm hoping that, well, I thought that was a good agreement too, was like, even if they shared the cost, they would both have a happy, reasonable, so if that could happen, that'd be wonderful. And she said they were interested in that, he just wasn't, so maybe they can work that out, and then it doesn't have to be a city
We use
issue.
their landscaper too. As you know, we have a park over there. They have the pool, we have the park. And our staff cuts the park so many times a year. Well, they want it, highly groomed and whatever. So Randy agreed that when their contractor goes over to mow their portion of their park area, that they mow the city's portion as well. So I don't know why she was able to work it out with us, but not able to work it out with Mr. Calvert.
All right, well then I'm good then.
We are still using their contractor, right?
Well, they are guys. That's our guys.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Splash Fest as well, as you took that from me, it was extremely hot. And for the staff and everybody to stay out there and run that type of operation. With Sam and the ladies back here and just your guys, it went extremely well. And I had to leave early. I couldn't take it anymore. So, but kudos to you guys that could have or did. So, and it turned out to be a great event. Everybody had a really good time. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing else, thank you.
Just a couple quick items. Thank you for everybody hanging out. Randy and I went down to Commissioner's Court this morning, and I specifically thanked the court for the money that we're going to be receiving for Hillview, and it was really an opportunity for us to say we really agree that it's a great project. We love the support that the county has been giving us over all these years. I just thought it very prudent that he and I would go down there and represent the city to the county. And I think it was well received. And if you had not seen Sunday's paper, terrific article here about when tires hit Cibolo Creek Trail, worries and stress fall behind. It's all about the trail process. If you haven't seen the article, you can go online and get it, or we can make copies for you. But it's really well written. Brandon wrote it, good piece. And Randy's quoted in there numerous times as well. So, excellent piece, excellent piece. Okay, thanks very much for your great tolerance tonight. And it is now 10:35.
Too late.
This meeting is now adjourned.
It's still Tuesday at least.
Yes, still Tuesday.